calling the meeting to order, and before I begin, I just want to let you know that I did have surgery on my eyes on Thursday. So before the rumors start flying, I want you to understand why I have the bruises and the swelling and that kind of thing. I just apologize that you have to look at me, so look somewhere else to look at it. All right. We will begin with a moment of silent prayer or reflection. Okay, Carrie, would you call the roll, please?
Nicole Cohen, here. Archana Elliott,
Here.
John Maston,
Here.
Lisa Ramon,
Here.
Kathy Cox.
Here. Please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gary, is there a call to the public? Okay, next on our agenda is recognition of visitors. Mrs. Malkowski from the LHUSD City Education Association.
Good evening, Madam President. I have to read the
All right.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Superintendent Assire, and directors. I'll be brief. It's been a long day. Today has been lots of testing. I was asked to check on the evaluation bill, SB 1071. And so I went and researched a little bit, and it's over in the House. And I know as a district we are working on a new evaluation format, and it's really important that we have that information. And so I reached out to Representative Biasucci before I got here. He said it wasn't on the agenda tomorrow, but he will let us know as soon as it is so we can start moving forward. Delegate Assembly is fast approaching. It will be the May 10th weekend. And with Delegates Assembly is also what we know as a Salute to Excellent Luncheon. And I'm excited to share, for the last 3 years we've had recipients of awards, and this year they were nominated by our association, Drake and Julia Finney for Havasu Online TV Live, and they will be receiving the AEA's 2019 Presidential Award for News Coverage Excellence because of their commitment to Lake Havasu Unified School District into public education. So that wraps up my information. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? So moved.
Second.
I wanted to know if you would allow me to note our metric tons of CO2 for our travel before we vote, just for April.
Absolutely.
Okay, 61.00 metric tons of CO2e for April's travel to Boston and to Phoenix.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor to approve the consent agenda. Mrs. Fleming?
Lisa Ramon,
Yes.
Nicole Cohen,
Yes.
John Maston,
Yes.
Archana Elliott,
Yes.
Kathy Cox.
Yes. Okay, with old business, item 5.1, Mrs. Assire.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. It is recommended that the governing board approve the second presentation of revised policy IA, instructional goals and objectives. On March 13, 2018, the governing board adopted a curriculum philosophy statement to guide the work of the curriculum committees. This statement embodied the newly revised mission statement and guiding principles. The curriculum philosophy statement was the basis for the curriculum work sessions that were conducted by the board during the month of January 2019. It was noted during the review of the work sessions that our philosophy statement, while adopted by the board, was not part of the board's policy. Policy IA is the board's introductory policy to the section that covers curriculum and instruction. The language of the original policy was very dated and did not convey our local philosophy. The proposed revisions incorporate the philosophy statement and provide greater detail on our areas of focus. There has been one change to the policy since the first reading. This is reflected in the third bullet on page 202.
I would move that we approve 5.1 as presented.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Carrie?
Nicole Colon,
Yes.
John Maston,
Yes.
Tatiana Elliott,
Yes.
Lisa Roman,
Yes.
Kathy Cox.
Yes. 5.2, Mrs. Asaya.
Thank you. It is recommended that the governing board approve the second presentation of revised policy JFABC and look at, there are two options on the new regulation JFABC-R, admission of transfer students. This policy is being revised to align with ARS section 15-701.01 regarding the admission of transfer students credit into Lake Havasu Unified School District, as well as the practice of assigning credit and grades for transfer credit for internal students. Historically, when students have transferred to the high school, there has not been a consistent practice in the assignment of letter grades versus credit. For example, a student taking a concurrent class with a university or college would receive a CR or credit, while a student taking that same class at Lake Havasu High School would receive the letter grade. Similar situations occur when students are transferring from an online high school setting in which they receive the letter grade. Conversely, if they took a university or college class instead of the online high school course, they would receive a credit grade. The new regulation clarifies the details for assigning credits and grades. The regulation also provides a change in the calculation of the weighted grades from the .35 to a 5-point scale. This was discussed at the last board meeting in some detail, with the recommendation being that we switch to the 5-point scale since that is a common scale that is used throughout the United States. However, there was some discussion about our continuing .35 percentage added as a grade weight instead, and so we have brought both of those options forward to the board. So in the options, the policy is the same. The regulation sample 1 is the 5-point scale. The regulation sample 2 is the .35 weight. That is the only difference between those two.
I would move that we approve 5.2, a 5-point scale.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, I do have one clarification that I only noticed today. I wish I had noticed it before. It is regulation JFABC-R, page 1 of 2. Is everyone on that page? Okay, it's the very first paragraph. It says, we will accept credits earned for successful completion of a course at a non-district school, including a home school. When I was at the high school, we had an incident with a student who had registered for an online class, and we did not realize she had not finished it, and we asked for proof. And we ended up, the family said that she had. We ended up contacting the school, and the school said she, yes, had registered, but had not completed it. And the family told us that a teacher, an aunt who was a certified teacher, had taught her the class. It was not a happy situation, and in the end, we turned down that credit. He says, you know, with the way it's phrased here, to me, it's not specific enough to say, you know, the school used for online instruction for homeschool students. I don't know the proper wording, but I can see in the future that this could be used as a loophole.
This is actually the language of the statute.
Okay.
So it does say that we have to recognize every setting that the state of Arizona recognized as a valid school, and homeschool is a valid school. I would have to defer to the site to inquire how they, what evidence they have to have provided in order to show that a student has completed the class.
Okay.
But we cannot. We cannot just,
Change the law.
right.
Okay.
And Mrs. Cox, I would also finish that opening sentence for you. It says homeschool per ARS 1-107, provided that the course or similar course is offered in district curriculum.
Okay.
And I think from a legal standpoint, that we have to be precise to that in what we consider here, because this is state law, and, you know, if the course is underwater basket weaving, just to put something out on the table, and we don't offer a course in underwater basket weaving, based on what I read here, we wouldn't be extending a credit for anything.
Right, but in this case, the student was taking a class that duplicated a class that we were offering. But we asked, okay, show her grades, show her test grades, show us something, and there was no evidence. Show her papers that she wrote, and there was nothing.
And we declined to give her the credit.
We did not give her the credit.
And that would be appropriate, I think, if we acted within the bounds of the law at that point.
And so we do have to have evidence they passed the course, and then if there's another portion of the regulation that states if a student doesn't believe that was a fair denial, they can take a challenge test to show that they've mastered that content. So they do have another option, but the point would be that they have to have mastered the content.
Okay, well, I felt that I should bring that up. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. No more discussion. Terry?
John Maston,
Yes.
Archana Elliott,
Yes.
Lisa Roman,
Yes.
Nicole Cohen,
Yes.
Kathy Cox.
Yes. Item 5.3, Mrs. Asire and Mr. Becker.
I'll read it. You want me to stand and answer questions? Again, Madam President, members of the board, it is recommended that the governing board approve the use of parchment to deliver official transcripts to colleges and universities electronically. Several issues arrive with transcripts, which are currently provided by the registrar at Kapusu High School. Official transcript requests are dependent upon the availability of staff and time to process them and upon the number of requests received. There is no system for tracking which requests have been processed or received by the requester or the institution. Students who need transcripts on short notice are currently dependent upon the availability of the registrar to print, process, and mail the transcripts. With the new system, students can order official transcripts at any time, and a staff can send electronically, saving days for the university to receive. Moving to this service will provide a more streamlined procedure for processing official transcripts and ensuring a well-documented delivery to the requested school. Most of the responsibility for ordering and requesting transcripts will be the students, and they can order them at any time. Although most of the responsibility is with the student, it is the school's responsibility to upload and send the transcripts to the requested colleges and universities. Turnaround time is much quicker, and as noted, delivery is documented. Students would be charged through Parchment a processing fee to support the service as follows: $5 for current students, $7.50 for 1 to 4 years post-graduation, and $10 for 5+ years post-graduation. A presentation was sent to the board that allowed them to review the process for ordering transcripts. Current students would still be able to access unofficial transcripts through the registrar at no cost. An official transcript is provided and will be provided to any students applying to the community scholarship, and all students will receive one free official transcript upon graduation.
Do I have a motion?
I would move that we open item 5.3 for discussion only at this point.
Okay.
If we choose, we can come back later and put a motion to adopt or deny.
Okay. I don't know that we need a second. I think I can.
We do.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. That means we must vote on this. Mrs. Fleming?
For discussion.
Oh, I thought we had to vote
We
to
have to vote
discuss
to
it.
discuss.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Archana Elliott,
Yes.
Lisa Roman,
Yes.
Nicole Cohen,
Yes.
John Maston,
Yes.
Kathy Cox.
Yes. Okay.
So, just going to go through a couple of things. First of all, I think this is a serious concern in regards to our students' Fourth Amendment rights. But I won't even go down that rabbit hole at this point. I just wanted to get it out there on top, because this isn't an opt-in thing. This is every student data record is getting uploaded whether they want to use it or not. And I think that's a violation of their Fourth Amendment. The second thing I wanted to point out was that just based on, and I'm not sure how they came to this calculation, but Santa Ana School District is a pretty big school district in Orange County. And they have a testimonial on the website that by using parchment, they've saved 8.34 man hours for every 50 transcripts that they published, and I think it was $200 to $300 for every 50 transcript. So if we extrapolate that to, and I'm assuming 400 students approximately graduate, we're looking at like 33 man hours and $1,200. And I only say that based on the statement at the last meeting. Sue Sondren, I think, said only half the seniors request the actual transcripts, so that's where I get that. So when I'm looking at this, beyond all the data security questions that I didn't feel comfortable with, I know John felt more comfortable than I did, but I wonder what the cost is for exposing our students and pushing them to a consumer website for something that's going to save us 33 man hours and $1,200 a year, and we're still going to provide them a transcript. I also have concerns, and I asked the representative at the work session about why they hadn't signed the data principles pledge or the student data privacy pledge. We were later forwarded a white paper. The board was forwarded a white paper. I read the white paper. I found it very disturbing that somebody produced a white paper that is titled confidential and proprietary information, meaning we can't even discuss the white paper in public. I think that's really deceitful. So I won't say any more than that, other than they are not listed as data privacy signatories on the Data Privacy Pledge website, and that's a major concern for me. So.
I'm on the technical end of this. I do security audits. I've done security audits. I've done them for FDIC, for PCI compliance, for HIPAA compliance. I do security audits. The audits that were discussed, or the audit that was discussed, is a good one. It's a voluntary audit. It is not a mandated audit. The mandated audits listed in the white paper, and there's only one, is just for credit card transactions. It has no bearing on whether or not our student data is safe. It just says that they comply with the credit card industry's regulation on security practices. They also list FERPA, which has no bearing on them directly, as we found out in the work session, and they've signed an alternate student privacy pledge. I think they've got adequate controls. I think they've got good encryption. But again, this is a third-party website. We are using a vendor to direct bill a student for an item, and we are putting student data into the cloud. Further, as we reviewed transcripts, we found out, looking at a couple of sample transcripts, that we have discipline records on some of our transcripts. Whether they belong there or not is a discussion perhaps for another time. But the fact that they're there means that now we as a district have a much higher hurdle in this. This is something where we directly link data to the state. And here we are in a situation where we're going to put a third-party vendor, not state-controlled, not government-regulated, to issue transcripts, and that gives me pause.
Thank you. Do either one of you have anything at this time? I do have something.
So my parents were actually visiting last week, and I was telling my dad a little bit about this and saying, or describing the process that Mr. Becker went through about how currently when students ask for a transcript, they get an actual printed sheet, and the receptionist embosses it by hand and sends it out in an envelope. And I said, I made the comment, they're doing it exactly the way they did when I graduated, which was a number of years ago. And my dad made the comment, they're doing it exactly the way they did it when I graduated, and he graduated in the class of 1966. The year is 2019. This The electronic system of filing is very common. It's common in a lot of different sectors. A lot of us probably e-file our taxes. We have medical records online and a variety of information. So students probably post more sensitive information about themselves on social media sites like Instagram. I'm weighing out the competing values of protecting student security versus bringing them into the 21st century with a system where they can deliver their college transcripts in a way that colleges are expecting. And to me, I side with providing the modern technology to our students.
First of all, I'd like to thank Mrs. Cohen particularly for delving into this issue. She did a wonderful job, and there are two issues. One is security, and one is privacy. I think the letter from the Fordham professor, I forget his name, there's really not much to be done unless there are at the very least state laws governing this or a federal law, and there is nothing. So it is kind of like the Wild West in a way. So what I did today, Mrs. Asire sent the board members an email with a phone number, so I picked up the phone and I called Jeff Harris, who was attended on that board back there. He attended the work session that we held, and I found some information that was a relief to me. And what he told me is that they have been approved by the Department of Defense, and he, for one, and that what they had to go through to address those very issues of security and privacy with the Department of Defense, so many hoops to jump through, and it took them a long time to do it. But they have been approved, and the Department of Defense is one of their clients. They've also been approved by another group where confidentiality is of the highest. Throughout the country, you have inmates, adult inmates, and they take online classes or they work on their GED. And they have been approved as the vendor for getting transcripts out for those people. He had the hoops that they had to jump through for that was very high as well, and difficult. And then the state of Arizona, he said, the GED program, whoever runs that, that they put them through the hoops also, and that they met the criteria, and that they have been approved by the organizing group for the GED. So that satisfied me a lot about the privacy and security. He promised, as he had promised us, he said, as long as I am part of Parchment, he said, we have no, we will not be monetizing student data. And I said, yes, but someday you will sell the corporation, or there will be another CEO. We can't control the future. And he said, yes, that could happen. He said, but what will happen is that if anything were to happen involving student privacy and security, as you know right now going on with Facebook, and it's all over the news right now, is that if Parchment is ever found out to do something violating privacy or security, that's the end of Parchment, because the Department of Defense, which I'm sure is their biggest client that they probably make the most money with, will drop them just like that. And he said, we won't be what we are. We won't be Parchment. We won't exist anymore. So that made sense to me. One of the things, so I am going to vote for it. I do want to say this. There is no suggestion at all that the high school or the registrar has been the cause for any transcripts that did not get to universities. What has happened is transcripts did not get to universities, and so of course parents immediately think that the school did not follow through, did not do it. but there is no evidence that that has ever happened. So this is what I am excited about, is that this information, which is transmitted to parchment, when a parent or a student requests it, the parent may immediately begin tracking it and following it until it reaches its destination. And that would be the responsibility of, say, the student or the parent. And they will know, and if it does not happen, then they get in touch with parchment, and parchment will figure out what might have happened. So I liked that a lot. Another thing that I liked, I talked to him a little bit more about reports. I said, you have the ability to provide reports, and so what would they cost our school district? And he said it takes us about 5 minutes to put any report that you want together. I don't think our community knows the caliber of university that our students get accepted into. When we have doctors come into town and look at, they consider whether or not they're going to move to LHUSD, they want a high school with very rigorous standards. And they want to know what universities did these students get accepted to. And when I tell them, how about Stanford, University of Pennsylvania, they say, yes, that is true. But I can't go anywhere in the district and find that list. I just happen to know students who are accepted to those universities. And I think that's a really, really important thing to have available. I talked to Sarah Skimp, and another thing that she said is that when she is counseling a current night, one of our high school students, and the student does not know which college that has accepted him, which one to go to, and she is able to say, we had students attend that school that really, they did okay, and she says that just has such a tremendous effect on those students. But that means some kind of record keeping, and we don't have anything that serious that we can refer to. So for that reason, I'm satisfied with the concerns that Nicole has brought up about security and privacy. And the other thing that Jeff Harris suggested, which I think we're going to do anyway, is he said, when you start off with the option that parents and students can continue to get their transcript from the high school free, as they always have been able to do, whether electronic or have it put in the mail. And he said, you can just start it out that way. So we do have that potential to do that, and I hope that that is what we're planning on doing. And then there's one more thing that, what was the other thing that I got the option to do that? Oh, I know, it's important to me. I see this as a teachable moment for our seniors every year. What Nicole and John have brought up, it's a very important issue. And just like many other life matters, this is something they're all going to have to be aware of and be knowledgeable of, and have to make choices and decisions. And I can see, I think Mrs. Asire said, this can be presented to the seniors, a letter to parents and to the seniors at nighttime, and it can be explained to them that they have a choice, but why this is a very serious choice that they can make, and that it's now going to be up to them. And I think in this situation now, students have two options. They can go with parchment, or they can stay with the high school, but we can inform them, and I think it's time to let them be informed and let them start making their own decisions. And we've provided the information that I think they need, and I think that would be a good way to enter the adult world, especially with this particular issue. Is, guess what? This is part of being an adult. You've got to make the right choices. So anyway, when I cast my vote, I will be voting for this. Anyone else? Nicole? Okay, go ahead. Nicole? Okay.
I just want to clarify something. I'm not opposed to electronic transmittal of records. I do this for a living. What I'm opposed to in this, what my problem is that we actually have entries that indicate discipline points on our transcripts. And I think we would be ill-advised to move forward with this as long as that question hangs out there. And I guess my question for Mr. Becker or Superintendent Sire would be, is this a pressing matter that we have to solve in short order, or is this something that we're actually going to be getting into the next school year?
Do you want to answer what I think you're going to answer first?
I do want to share, because this came up at the last meeting, we did get a response from our attorney on the matter of discipline being included on the transcript, and that is not required in the state of Arizona. And so Mr. Becker and I had already had that discussion about removal of discipline records from the transcript. The only information that must be included in the notes is the passing of the civics citizenship test.
Okay.
And so that process will start with our current seniors. And then the other step for that would be for us to look at our board policy. I have not done that yet. Just recently got the response from our attorney. But to make sure that we in fact have something in our policy about that as well.
Okay. Mrs. Cohen?
So, to clarify on that first, so we are gonna use this for the 2019 grads, this service?
No,
No, not until,
So
it would be starting with 1920.
So I had a feeling what Mrs. Sire was going to say, so I can address John's question. I would like to get this put in place so that we can take the time during the summer when our building is empty to be able to train our people on this so that we can have it in place for next year. So I don't know if that answers your timeline question.
It does.
Okay.
Thank you.
so I just wanted to address a couple things that came up. So first of all, starting with the whole 21st century, we're in the 21st century. I just want to state, you're an adult and you're making this decision for yourself. When we talk about filing taxes, e-filing, I'm making that decision for me. When it comes to medical records, there's a $10,000 fine per HIPAA violation. There's nothing like that that protects our kids. I mean, the HIPAA $10,000 fine, that keeps people from freely just, being careless with people's medical records. There is no such penalty for messing around with our students' information. And then in terms of Kathy feeling satisfied with they've got a Department of Defense contract, I don't feel any satisfaction from that whatsoever. I mean, we have watched every sector of our government be hacked repeatedly. Top secret confidential stuff is being leaked out all over the place. So the fact that they, attained a Department of Defense, it's not about when Parchment will be hacked or if, it's when. And that's the way it is for everybody. So all I'm saying is that my fundamental problem with this is that it's not a choice. And it violates the Fourth Amendment. What I mean by that is that our parents in this community do not have a choice to not have their students' data uploaded to this vendor. It's not an option. And that is wrong as a school board that is supposed to sit here and protect our Constitution. We took an oath to the Constitution. We took an oath to the Fourth Amendment. Even though we may not fully understand the implications of it, there's plenty of evidence out there. This is a total violation. Whether it's convenient or not, it's a violation because they don't have a choice. Their only choice is to, unenroll from Lake Havasu Unified and homeschool.
Okay, I actually think that is a legitimate concern. And I looked up under Parchment's terms and conditions, it was 1.6, their definition of a credential owner. And I asked Jeff Harris today, does that mean we send you all of our students' transcripts, but we have students who don't use that information, they don't use your service, are they a credential owner? And I think that he had never thought about that before. And he said, he sees my point. He said, however, again, an answer we've already gotten, we are not going to monetize this information. So it's
The district is. The district's monetizing the student data
how are we monetizing
because
it?
we're making money on it. That's how we're paying for it. I mean, I hate to put it that way, but it's the truth.
But if they access a regular hard copy of their transcript, don't they pay for it? They get one free transcript, but then after that, if they request an additional one, isn't there a fee for it?
Print them off.
Print them off with no fee?
Yes.
No matter how long after they graduated, they still, okay.
The district's not getting any money for it.
I beg to differ.
Okay, that's a good point. Please elaborate. I'm not aware of that. How does that work? That
Well,
the
that's,
district is
it's
getting
right
money?
there in the contract, that students are, it says, the 1, 2, 3rd paragraph down, students would be charged through Parchment a processing fee to support this service as follows. To support this service. So we are making money off of them paying. This is how we are gonna have the service here.
I misread that, then I thought Parchment was collecting that money. So the district will be making
I
money?
think what she's saying is that Parchment is collecting that money, but the money that students pays for their service to send that transcript on. So rather than us sending it on.
But do we ever at any point receive any money from the transaction?
I would have to defer, I do not believe so, Mr. Becker, do you know?
We would, the monies that are being collected pay for the student's transcript to be processed through that company, as well as to be able to back up historical documents as well as we go.
So we receive a service.
Yes.
So, and I think that's her point. If we decided that we weren't going to let Parchment charge a fee, we would have a fee coming back to us. So we don't pay the fee. We're now telling Parchment to charge for the transcript. Either way, Parchment's going to get paid for what they're doing, whether we're paying them directly or in this way, an indirect method.
Right, but the district is not receiving any
Actually,
money.
we are. We are getting a transcript service at no charge because we're passing the fee on per transcript to the end user.
But we don't charge a fee now.
Right, and they're, right, we don't charge a fee now, but we're giving them their transcript, a hard copy, a secure hard copy, embossed, the whole old school 9 yards. It's not being uploaded without permission to this vendor, third-party vendor.
But I believe you said they still have the options to ask for hard copies, which will still be free of charge.
Yes.
So they will only be charged the money if they order a transcript through Parchment.
Mhm.
Can they opt out of having the transcript uploaded?
No,
No.
that's where my problem is. They can't opt out of doing that. We're now saying for the first time, you don't have an option over your data.
Yeah.
And that's a slippery slope.
Okay, I don't see that we are receiving any money from the transaction when the student pays Parchment. I'm not able to put that together.
We're receiving the benefit.
Well, yes, we are receiving a benefit.
And whether that benefit is monetized directly through us or not, we're still in reception of something.
And it is voluntary. They do not have to order the transcript through Parchment. They could just collect, they could still have it mailed physically by our
They-
department.
They could, but they can't opt out of having their data converted electronically to upload.
Yes.
Right, but they are not being forced to make any payments towards us.
No, but in the assumption of risk. The assumption of risk here is putting the data into the cloud.
No, now we were talking about money, so let's stick to money for this. Where risk
Actually,
is
let's talk about both, because both are germane.
I agree, and
Because-
risk,
Because what we're talking about, and the reason why the money is important, is we are pushing risk to the end user, and we are monetizing how we're doing that by the fee charged to the cloud provider.
I'm not connecting the two, but I do agree there is a risk. There is a risk in everything electronic, and I don't see how we can do away with that. I'm sure you are very much more learned than me in that department, and I'm sure that you would know better what happens and doesn't happen. Doesn't mean that we don't proceed forward and that you don't do whatever business you have to do because of that.
Is there any further discussion?
Well, I have a question. So just to clarify about, us making money on this contract. So it says in the rationale, students will be charged through Parchment a processing fee to support this service as follows: $5 for current students. And then when you go over to page 3 pages over, Exhibit A, it's a learner pay. That's what we're doing, right? Learner pay. Credential owners or that will be paid or will be billed a fee of $395. So where's the difference go?
The difference?
Of the $5 that the student pays, is that what you're asking?
My understanding, and Mr. Becker will correct me if I'm wrong, is that the difference is going to cover the cost of uploading and converting the ones that are over 5 years old, because those are in a different system. So that is the fee. Well, we would be paying for them to have access for those transcripts, so that is covered in the additional cost.
So we're going to monetize the data of the current students so that we can afford to upload alumni and get their credentials up there so they can have access to it.
I just don't see that connection. The student will pay $5 to Parchment, and yes, we're benefiting from it, but we're not getting any money back.
But we're going, but Mrs. Snyder just explained that we're going to use the difference so that we can then start on another project and we can start uploading old credentials.
Is that what we're doing? Okay.
So we would either pay Parchment or the students would pay Parchment.
And what we're doing now is having the students pay Parchment. Okay. Okay, now that was never made clear to me. So
I would quibble a little bit with the phrasing. We're not having them pay Parchment. We're just presenting the option that they can request this transcript for a fee. They still retain the option of getting a hard copy if that's what they want to for free. And I do understand the concerns about uploading the data in the first place. But again, to me, the risk is minimal, and that the reward is worth it.
So the $5 stays with Parchment, but
Yes.
they're going to use the difference between the $3.95 and the $5 to take our old files and update them and put them into their system. Is that?
That's correct. I'm looking at Mr. Becker. He is nodding, so yes.
Okay.
It seems like a reasonable cost to retrofit an outdated system.
Except we're charging the alumni $10 and it's still a $3.95 charge, so we're making the money that we
No, I think I thought the first transcript, no matter when.
Or 1 to 4 years, $750, 5 years plus 10.
Was my understanding correct that it's current year students that get the free transcript and that alumni are paying for their transcripts on the first one?
Yes.
I am correct. Okay.
Yes, alumni are currently paying for transcripts.
How much are they paying? Anybody?
Right there.
Oh,
It's not currently, but the new system, they'll be paying the $750.
so if I graduated 5 years ago and went to the office, they would charge me $10 for my
No,
transcript?
our office would not charge, our office will continue into infinity to provide free transcripts, whether electronic.
So you're asking currently if you graduated from Lake Havasu High School in 1994, and I'll even go back further, we received a request this year, and I am not joking by any means, from 1971, that an individual needed their transcripts, and our registrar had to go through the work of finding that transcript and getting it to this individual, and these people are trying to turn around their lives because where this individual was trying to get their education, which was referenced before, was a long, arduous process. So the longer that students are out of school, the more work it becomes to do that. As we receive on a consistent basis for approval for higher classifications and within our armed services, we switched to from Power School to Synergy a few years ago, and that
I voted against that too.
I know that, but we still have to go through the process of providing the address of these people that they've listed to confirm that they graduated from our school at that time. And so there is a time process that takes place as the years increase from graduation.
So is it our intention to go back to the beginning of time and upload all the transcripts of everybody who's graduated?
No, we really, I mean, the example I used is an outlier. It's an outlier, but we do receive transcript requests within that 5 years, usually about year 7, it drops off. And then you get those outliers like the example I used.
Mrs. Asari, do you have something?
No, I was simply going to say that they do charge the $12 for the verification, which is the other piece that Mr. Becker was talking about for armed forces, et cetera. When you're getting that verification, it's $12, not $3.99.
Okay.
So that also covers the cost. Then the $3.95 helps cover the cost of those enrollment verifications as well.
One of the things that I know Mrs. Asari mentioned on our website, a student would go to our website, our district website, or the Lake Havasu High School website, and it would say, click here for a copy of the transcript. If we could add a statement under that, or if you need help, call, and the counseling office's number would be there. If someone calls from 10 years ago and that's, or they look and they see that and they get parchment, they're not going to have a clue what is going on. And if they have the number to call the high school, then they can call the high school and won't have to pay for the transcript anyway. If we could add something like that, if it's possible, that is my suggestion. Any further discussion?
Well, just to note on top of all of that, that we're required to put them, publicize them on our website.
And what does that look like? Have you thought about that, Mr. Becker? What that's
It's
going to
really providing that link on our website for students.
just to provide the link. That's all. Okay. All right. Any further discussion? All right then, Terry.
I move that we close discussion.
Oh, okay. Oh, we were just discussing. All right. So granted.
Second.
Thank you. Lisa Vermont,
No.
so to close the
No to closing the discussion.
Nicole Cohen,
No.
I'm ready. We're going to then have a new motion, possibly.
I'm willing to keep discussing. Let's discuss. I'll discuss till midnight.
Well, I think that we're,
Did I misunderstand something?
So we all have to vote, do we all have to vote on whether or not to close the discussion?
Yes, that's what we're doing.
Okay.
John Maston,
No.
Martina Collier,
No?
Kathy Fox,
yes. So
I make a motion to adopt 5.3 as presented.
You're out of order.
you can't do that because we have a motion on the floor just simply to close discussion.
Yes.
And once we close discussion, then you can propose your motion. But we can't stop discussing it until
Oh.
we have your motion on.
But if we voted on the motion, then we don't have a motion on the floor.
We actually, we're actually in the middle.
And I did make a motion.
Yeah, but
the discussion's not closed.
it was out of order. And then you voted against ending the discussion, so we will have endless discussion.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
There's nothing to stop us.
I will move again to close discussion.
Okay. And do we have a second for that? Okay, we have a second. Terry?
Yes. Okay. Lisa Vermont,
Yes.
Nicole Cohen,
No.
John Maston,
No.
Martina Alliar,
Yes. So,
Session is closed.
just, thank you, just this.
Madam President.
Now I can make a motion, correct?
Madam
Now I can
President.
make a motion, is
Madam
that
President.
correct?
Hold on,
Madam-
I make a motion, I move to adopt 5.3 as presented.
okay. Can we hold what you have to say for discussion?
I was actually going to make a motion, and I was not recognized by the chair when I addressed the chair.
Okay, and you did say Madam Chairman,
I did.
so,
No,
there has not
You have a
been,
motion on the floor.
no, I didn't.
You
Did
didn't
someone,
recognize me, you have a motion on the floor.
did someone second it? You seconded it?
I
No, don't second it yet. Stop. Did anyone second the motion?
Not that I heard.
So we don't have a motion yet on the floor. So I'm going to go to Mr. Maston, and he can make a motion, and we can either vote for it if there's a second or not, and then we may or may not entertain your motion. And then the next time, just say, Madam President, and that's what I will do. I learn as I go. I'm sure Mr. Maston will always keep me straight. Mr. Maston.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we approve 5.3 as presented with the proviso that we update our policy on student discipline and transcripts.
Okay?
I second that motion.
So, are we in discussion?
We are in discussion.
So I just want to be really clear that we are overriding all the parents in the district because this is not an optional thing. And we are all going to vote on whether or not, I want to be really clear, vote whether or not to violate our students' Fourth Amendment right to privacy over their data. That is the vote we are about to take. You can put it any which way you want to, but that is the fundamental. These kids have a right, and we hear about rights all the time. You see people protesting about it all the time, but when it comes down to a fundamental right, whether it's convenient or not, this is what we're about to vote on, and I just want to make that clear because I'm going to remind people repeatedly what they have done in terms of our kids' data.
Any further discussion?
My only comment to that would be that we're not overriding parents. We have not heard from parents who have
I have.
quibbled with it. Okay, I have not.
Does
And
that mean-
no one spoke at this meeting. No parent got up to speak. We haven't heard any opposition.
Is there any audience discussion on this? Just curious.
I have a question. Okay.
If I, just to help Mrs. Cox out, if we could have use the mic up here, that do we have a record of it?
And, yeah, state your name, please.
Oh, man. Okay, my name is Lori McGregor. I have a student in 6th grade. You said that this is violating their rights, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. Can you explain to me as a parent, how is it any different from Synergy and Parent View?
It's not.
It's not, so we're already using those two tools.
Well, it is, I'm sorry.
Okay, so how is it different?
So, well, I don't know, I'm not familiar with Parent View. I'm familiar with Synergy, and I went to the wall on that one as well and was against it as well. But at least that was state regulated.
Okay.
That was part of the whole, I want to say ESSA. I mean, it was part of the whole state longitudinal data system. It was a requirement from the feds and the state, and so, and it was really our only option. It was presented as, if you don't adopt Synergy, then you won't get paid. You won't get your state money. And I still voted no on it. But the difference is that this is a consumer website. That's
Okay.
where the difference is.
Okay, I missed part of it when I got here, I didn't realize.
That's okay.
that. But, as a parent, I don't see a problem with it. My daughter, she's not graduated yet, she will be graduating soon. And with what is out there anymore, I mean, the stuff that I'm pretty sure you can get from a transcript, someone can find anywhere else. You haven't had any parents complain about it, am I right?
I've had discussions with parents that are
Okay.
not happy about it at all.
Okay. I
But
know
a lot
there's
of
gonna
people
be-
are afraid of being mocked by the whole, we're in the 21st century, get over it.
Well, I mean, if they want to go electronic with it for convenience, that could be up to their choice, especially if you can still go to the district and get it for free.
It's not, that's the point, it's not a choice. If you had a high school student, whether your kid used the site or not, you have no choice. Their information is getting uploaded to a consumer website.
Okay.
Not a state agency that is a requirement with laws, yada, yada, yada. This is where it's different.
Are there any state agencies that do this for our kids?
No.
No, but we could do it ourselves.
Is there any? What do you mean we can do it ourselves?
We presently, our registrar has been taking care of transcripts for years and sends them out free and can do mail a paper copy or an electronic copy. Either one doesn't cost the students anything, so they're going to continue to have that option if parents are concerned. But Mrs. Cohen's point is that we will upload all of the seniors' data to Parchment. Some of the students will never use it. It'll just sit there.
I do want to clarify, we do not permit electronic copies.
Sue said she's been asked before and she's done. That's what she chose.
Not authorized to do that.
Okay.
So
Very seldom.
why not give that choice to the parents of the children? Is that,
I love that idea.
can we ask the parents if it's that big of a concern? I mean, I personally don't care. My child will most likely use that service because she's very into tech. She's someone I could see her using it. So to me, it doesn't bother me because it's probably going to be more costly for her to do that when she gets to being a senior than sending out who knows how many colleges she chooses to go to at that time. So if the parents are fine with it, then there shouldn't be a problem.
Well, how many parents? So what if only one parent wasn't fine with it?
Well, okay.
The
so
problem
here's
is
the
the
thing.
contract.
So if you want to go down that road, how many parents weren't okay with the standardized uniform that we're all forced to use?
Okay.
I mean, if you want to go with how many parents aren't okay with something
No,
and we
well,
did it
I'm
anyways,
asking,
I mean,
okay, let's
I'm
stay
buying
on,
uniforms for my
excuse
child.
me, if we could stay on task and on topic. This is a legitimate question that I'm asking you. You say, what do the parents think? Well, okay, so what if there is only one parent that is adamant, I want to protect my child's data, and I do not want their information uploaded? The problem is that the contract is written, that's not a possibility.
okay.
And that was a concern that I shared in the work session last week with the representative from the company. This is the point I'm making.
Okay.
So you say, well, let's ask the parents. Well, I'm trying to gauge what you mean by that. Does that mean if 5 parents come here and say that it's okay, or that Lisa hears from 5 parents or 20 parents, that she's fine with it? And what about the one parent that doesn't?
I would recommend sending a survey to the parents of the schools, like you do with everything
So
else.
majority rules?
Well, it rules with many other choices that are made.
I have actually a much different question.
Yeah.
If this does violate Amendment 4 of the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, if this service actually does do that, why don't we have it opt out? I mean, we have opt-outs on all sorts of other stuff. And we're about to sign a contract without an opt-out in it. Does that sound, I mean, would you do that? If it were understood that it was your data?
If I didn't have a choice, I might think twice about it, honestly, but
We have a choice. We have a choice.
you're
Why
making a
do-
choice for other people, though. That's,
We're-
let them decide, like we've done with other decisions you guys have made.
But the choice before us is everybody's data or no data. The choice is not some people's data, but others can opt out. It's all of it or none of it.
Well, why don't you find out from the parents before you guys make that decision?
Well, that's the question that I'm asking. How many parents?
And if a parent disagrees, can it opt out?
Right.
Okay, so, I'm just curious if you would remain standing for a moment, are there any other parents who are going to speak to this issue in the audience? So, I mean, that alone is reflective of the,
May I just ask a clarifying question maybe? So,
can you say your name?
I'm Andrea Hellard. I'm
Oh, I can't see who you are.
Sorry.
Andrea, I'm sorry.
I want to clarify. So, are the transcripts that are being uploaded the final transcript? Or are they uploaded from the start? Because most of the students that are using the final transcript are 18, so they would be able to make that choice on their own. I just don't know enough information to be able to discern what that would look like. So I guess that would be my clarifying question.
Mr. Becker, can you answer that? I have a little information after talking to Jeff Harris. He said that when students begin applying for colleges, that they will have the, not the final transcript, they will have a transcript that they have to send out. And later when the student is accepted and the university will ask for a final transcript, that's how they know that that's where that student is accepting that university's offer. And so there must be interim transcript for the students to use to apply for college.
Correct. So the pause was, it's every kid that's applying for college with that final transcript 18. So that's what the pause was thinking of those outliers. So not every kid that hits that final transcript consent is 18 at that point.
Right. Not every student is 18 when they graduate.
I would think that it would be not just an outlier. I would think that it would be a little bit more than that. I think it's maybe not 50%, but, you know, end of May through, we accept children to October, September. That's the group that we're talking about. That would not be was that transcript went out. And it depends when it's being sent in the academic year as well. Some kids are right on it, and some kids wait till the very last second to do it, so it really depends.
So I'm just saying, as a parent, if you guys are this concerned about this, you should go to the parents. And what I mean by that is how you send out other questionnaires, go to each and every school and ask, because how many of the students from kindergarten to 12th grade stay here the whole time? Like, I'm not sure myself that majority, but I'm gonna guess that a good amount of our kids start kindergarten here and end in high school here. Okay, so I would recommend, if it's that big of a concern, speaking of the Fourth Amendment, then ask the parents and then go from there before you make that decision for them, if you're that concerned. But honestly, as a parent, I don't see a problem with it.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have a question on the floor. Someone else? Mrs. Nowakowski?
Just another clarifying question. I understand your point of the Fourth Amendment. What does our attorney say about it? Because I know these have to be presented. So are they concerned
Well, the
about
attorneys
this?
approved the contract. I mean, it's been approved by legal, but legal is not there to give us advice on how this affects our students. Legal is there to see how we cover our district from potential suits. Am I mistaken? They're not going and looking at everything that we do and how it's going to impact the end user. And all I'm saying is we all know that this is the world that we live in now, and it's just stunning that we're so blasé about opening up this can of worms for the first time with a consumer website that we're going to advertise on our website. And it's just stunning to me that people fought and died for these rights that we have, that we don't even give a second thought to giving up. All right, we better take a vote because I'm going to start crying.
Okay, I call for the question.
John Maston.
I have concerns. I do. Even though I made the motion, I still have concerns. I think there needs to be an opt-out in this. I mean, we opt people out for shots for crying out loud. There's got to be an opt-out in this, so I'm going to vote no.
Nicole Cohen.
No.
Lisa Roman.
Yes.
Archana Aliar.
Yes.
Kathy Cox.
Yes.
Thank you.
And again, thank you, Mrs. Cohen and Mr. Meston. Your points are very well taken. Next is 5.4, and that is Mr. Gardner.
It is recommended that the governing board, Madam President, the governing board is recommended that the governing board approve the addition of the Jumpstart National Standards in K-12 Personal Finance to the high school curriculum for the math and language course the following revisions. The Lake Havasu Unified School District is in the process of reviewing curriculum. The high school math department reviewed several courses and realized there is an opportunity to upgrade the math and math course. Currently, math money is considered a fourth-year math course and is beyond the scope of the current state standards. Lessons and units have been aligned to algebra standards and skills, but the content of the units is being updated. Incorporating these standards into the units of study is the next step to providing a high-quality financial literacy course. The Jump Start Standards is still the guiding document for the course, and the following revisions and or changes based on the board postponement include: omit spending and saving standard 2B, differentiate between an expense that is tax deductible and one that is not. Omit credit and debt standard 1J, explain how business owners use debt as leverage. Omit credit and debt standard 3A through E, apply strategies to avoid or correct debt management problems. Omit credit and debt standard 4F, give examples of legal and illegal debt collection practices covered by the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Omit investing standard 4C and E, identify the protections provided to investors by the Securities Investor Protection Corporation, and summarize the types of information, assistance, and protection that individual investors can receive from different sources. Omit financial decision-making standard 2C. Explain why an individual or household may want to consult with an attorney for financial advice or representation. The adoption of the requested standards provides a framework with a comprehensive personal finance curriculum and fits the district goal of producing a responsible citizen. This item was postponed at February 19, 2019 board meeting, and a copy of the National Standards book will be provided electronically to the governing board prior to the April 16th board meeting.
Madam President, I move that we approve 5.4 as presented, but only for the fiscal year 20 school year and only for the 12th grade standards.
Do I have a second? I will second that. Okay, discussion please, and I'll start with Mr. Maston if you want to explain.
Couple of things. Senate Bill 1184 is going to require some changes to how we teach this.
It just passed.
Just passed.
Right.
The second thing is that this can potentially be, if adopted as presented in its entirety, be a complete K-12 standard. I don't believe that we are being asked to put this into K-12, but I also think that when we're asked to do something for a specific set of goals, that we really need to have it conform to that set of goals as well. And the limitation of the year also coincides with that Senate Bill 1184. I think we need to revisit this again in the near future and make sure that this is the right thing. I don't want to stop development of anything, but on the same token, I don't want to have something in place and have it be the wrong thing.
That's an interesting point, and I appreciate it. Mr. Gardner, do you see anything troublesome about that?
No, I was asked by the math department of the high school, and they suggested that this was an opportunity, and there are a couple of teachers that are interested in providing this type of literacy with regards to finances to students. So with that said, I took that information and provided the rationale to the board on why this is important for this group of teachers. I do have Carrie here, if she would like to say a comment or two, if you feel you'd like to.
Sure. The one thing that I do just want to mention before we start on John's motion is that the math and money course isn't strictly just 12th graders, because math courses at the high school aren't grade level. So I would just call that along with the state standards. You could just edit that to say 4th year math course.
I actually said it would only be the 12th grade standards, which would be the ones presented. The way that the standard breaks down.
Yes,
right.
yes, I understand what you're looking at now.
Okay.
If you wanted me to describe that process at all, I can. If not, that's okay.
One of the things that I would like to say about this, I went on Jumpstart's website, and the standards are listed for kindergarten, 4th grade, 8th grade, and 12th grade. And that's pretty good, because I couldn't imagine one of those standards I want to introduce to a kindergartner, maybe one or two, but certainly starting with 1st grade. And that means, and then the second and third grade teachers, if we were to ever adopt this K-12, the second and third grade teachers could apply those skills all the way up, and then the fourth grade standards would change and so forth. It's the application and the practice of the skills that instills it in the student's head. We all know, it's all over television, it doesn't matter whether you're on the left or the right politically, income inequality is a big hot topic of discussion right now. I watched Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan. I watched the CEO of BlackRock, an institutional investment company. I watched Warren Buffett say this is one of the major problems of our time. And my concern is our economic system, capitalism, is the best wealth generator we've ever known. And we could take steps to turn off that spout. But I'd like to do some things first to fix it. And one of the first things that we could do is give our students financial literacy. Our students do not know how to take advantage of our capitalistic system. And I can't think of anything simpler to do. I think this is almost as important as phonics for our students to understand this. I just feel a great obligation to get this into place all the way through first grade, all the way up through 12th grade. And yes, let's give the teachers another thing that they have to teach. And I know no one's laughing out there in the audience if the person happens to be a teacher. I get that. But this is very, very important. And so I'm happy that we're taking this jump for our 12th graders, or at least those in math of money, and that's another issue. A lot of our top students that never take math of money, so they don't get this at all. Is that correct?
No, we have an honors math and money class.
Oh, we do now have a, so would all of our students to take math of money? I doubt it.
It's an elective factor, so it's their choice.
That's a choice, so it's not 100% of our seniors have to take math of money, but they can choose. But oh, good, I'm happy. That's a big improvement from when I was there. Okay, so I'm very happy to see this. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. So I have a problem that we would omit anything. My problem with it in the last board meeting was that we were pushing our kids to normalize having debt, to buy a car or to take on student debt, student loans, to go to those great universities. But I didn't want anything omitted out of it, so I don't know why we would omit anything. I want both sides taught. I want the kids to know that they can, the students, I want them to know that they can buy a car, they can go to college and not go into massive debt and not put their parents in massive debt in order to do it. But I didn't want anything omitted. So,
could you explain to us, Mrs. Tompkins, why some standards were omitted?
Well, I had come to the first work session when this was being presented, and there weren't any questions asked. I had a softball game the day of the board meeting, and I guess that's when questions came up. So I further had a meeting with Mr. Berger, and he said there were concerns with the debt type of standards, and then we would review it and see if any of those had to be taught or would we be willing to admit it. At the high school, we're happy either way. We just want some direction and some standards that we can use as a basis to start setting our curriculum, because our curriculum is a little outdated. We haven't looked to renew this since at least 2004, and lots of financial standards have changed since that time.
So you in the math department, you are not proposing that we omit any of these standards. That was something because the question came up
Yeah, we
in
were
board meeting.
providing options.
Providing options. So that could be amended, Mrs. Cohen, if you want to.
yeah, I don't want anything omitted.
If you want to.
Sure.
I agree with Mrs. Cohen.
Mr. Maston?
The question came up during the board meeting is, should we be teaching children that debt is good?
Right.
And when you look at the national standards, there are some fairly
innocuous government bureaucracies, what some of the major players in these standards are people like credit card companies, banks, people that benefit off of debt.
Credit counseling companies.
Correct. So it really becomes a philosophical argument at some point as to how we teach our children about money. Do we teach our children that debt is a normal, acceptable, manageable thing that we must be doing at all levels of what we do? Do we pull out the plastic when we really want something? And that's kind of where the concerns came from. And so when you look at the omissions, and I had concerns about the omissions, I emailed the superintendent. The omissions are really coming more in that vein than they are in let's omit something for the sake of slimming something down or getting something out there that is contrary or controversial. But that's really, and Mrs. Cohen used the example of Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey preaches zero debt. Who cares about your credit score when you don't need it? That may not be 100% realistic, but on the opposite side of that, we see people who pull boats into town on F-550s, F-650 trucks that live in $1 million homes and can't see their eyeballs some days because they're so far under. It can get very bad on both ends of that equation. And so I think that the goal here is that we have a realistic thought process when it comes to money and how we utilize that tool in our lives.
Would you like to withdraw your motion and amend it and propose another motion so that we do not
vote it down, it stands.
So if I vote for it, then it's going to be to omit these items that I think are important. Because that's how it stands.
Well, and I still have some questions. Can we
Go
not
ahead.
get to the vote yet? So, so my question is, why are we voting on this standard? Like, I'm more concerned with what we're teaching them. And of course, I didn't like the K-12 at all. And I think a lot of the 12th grade standards are useless information for our kids. I mean, their heads are stuffed full of useless information as it is. Like, they really need to be able to explain what an actuary is. Our employees can't even tell us what actuaries are, and we've just gone through this EBT crisis for the past how long, and that's one of the standards. So, but my question is, why are we making this big deal about K-12 standards when it says in the rationale that you've aligned this class to algebra? So I'm confused about that, because these standards don't give us a curriculum. What curriculum are you going to use to teach the standards?
Harry, can you take the mic?
Sure. Sorry.
So just to give you a little background on the process and why we decided to kind of move this direction, the Math and Money textbooks are old and outdated. When we adopted textbooks in the math department in 2007, which meant they went into play in 2008, Math and Money was the only course not included in that adoption. So the textbooks were from the previous adoption, which means at least 8 years older because we were on a 7-year rotation. So in the course of history at our high school also, we have a high turnover rate of teachers, and one of the areas that tends to turn over quite frequently is the Math and Money course because it's an elective course and not a state tested or content area course. So we were looking to set a standard for what should be taught before we look at adopting a curriculum and updating the course. We thought there should be a set of standards so it's very clear to the instructor coming in that this is a set of standards that they're using, and then we review through the curriculum process to hopefully update resources as we kind of work through that process. The course itself, previous to this, was aligned to algebra standards with the state of Arizona to approve it as a 4th-year math course elective. So that allows the student, as far as the graduation requirement goes, to get their 4th-year math course. So that's why it's aligned to that, and we do believe that it's very important to integrate the algebra skills into the course. We also have other processes in our math department where we are constantly incorporating the math skills like mini math and other review materials and things that are implemented. So that covers the algebra standards of it, but never really looked at the content that should be covered during the course, or even give us a set of standards to kind of evaluate different curriculums that we tend to look at or want to adopt in the future.
So in the rationale, it said that you did review several courses. Did you?
No, we reviewed several sets of standards, not courses.
Well, it says the high school math department reviewed several courses and realized there was an opportunity to upgrade. So maybe it was old courses you were reviewing, I don't know.
I
But
didn't write the rationale.
Did you at all review any of the Dave Ramsey material?
I did not review that yet because, again, I felt that it was better to have a set of standards to then review material that I would want to consider for the course in the future.
Okay.
And have like an unbiased opinion about that.
Okay.
I think when it's talking about the high school math department reviewed several courses, they're probably talking about different classes that they were evaluating. Well, we did, and Joy Mabo is here. She's one of my math and money teachers, and she comes from Phoenix area. And we did look into other math and money or financial algebra courses that are offered in different districts in Arizona, and what standards they were using for the course. So that may be what Mr. Gardner is referencing. As far as other courses, we were looking at comparable courses at other high schools in Arizona.
So do you know of curriculum that is aligned to the Jumpstart National Standards?
Well, we do know that it was used in Millennium High School, and
What was?
Verrado High School is the Jumpstart standards.
Well, that's just standards, but do you know of any curriculum that's aligned to that teaches those standard curriculum?
Well, they have the curriculum that they wrote themselves. They didn't choose to adopt a text.
Okay, so are you guys gonna write your own curriculum if?
We haven't made that determination yet.
Okay, because the Dave Ramsey curriculum is aligned to the Jumpstart standards.
Again, I haven't reviewed any curriculum yet. I don't have an opinion one way or the other at this point.
Well, that's fine. I'm just saying. We've made such a big deal about, well, I've made such a big deal about these standards, but only because I didn't want them in kindergarten. I thought it was inappropriate, you know.
Yeah, our intent was, in the math department, was not to adopt it K-12. It was to adopt the 12th grade, as John had stated.
But there still is a lot of standards. I hope you agree that they're so irrelevant to 12th grade students. I understand that you need to know that there's insurance out there, but you know, trying to keep kids engaged seems to be the biggest problem. And I mean, I fell asleep reading some of the standards that would not apply to them for like 8 years. I couldn't imagine why we would want to teach them in 12th grade. But anyways.
I find
so are you
money
gonna
very
look
interesting.
You found them very interesting?
I find money and teaching financial skills interesting in my courses, and I apply that. But
well, yeah, maybe you do, but I mean, I hear the word relevant all the time, so I'm assuming that trying to keep it relevant to the age group and the situation, you know, the things that they're going to be dealing with.
I agree.
So, as far as I know, they're still covered on their parents' insurance till they're 26, right?
It's a possibility.
So they really need to worry about it right now.
Again, legal-wise, their parents don't have to cover them, so they would need to know their choices.
Oh wait, I had some questions. So your motion's still on the floor?
Yes,
absolutely.
Still stands.
And it was for 12th only? 12th only. And
for the year only.
And for the year only?
Depending on what comes out of this.
The legislature.
And to omit certain standards. It's included in it.
Yeah, but I don't like that part.
Yeah, so that's where we kind of go next. What once you, okay, we can change that.
And then I was really trying to understand math, my worst subject, and so I was reading in the focus book. Have you read the math section of the focus book?
I have, yes.
Stunning, absolutely stunning. So I hope that in the district that we're going to be looking at applied mathematics, probability and statistics, and ratios and proportions instead of algebra, because it seems like everybody's saying that's what we need.
Well, 25% of our second year algebra standards are probability and statistics. And I do teach the dual enrollment and statistics course, MCC 221 currently.
Can't we teach any type of statistics in a math and money course?
We can implement that, you know, as we review and look at things, yes. I just don't have a set of standards that would directly apply. But we could realign. The algebra standards include those probability and statistics. So we can certainly realign any second year algebra standards to the course that we would like also.
And then almost unrelated, but do you guys talk, like math people, talk about why all this algebra if business and, you know, scientists and engineers are using basic math? Like seriously, nobody's using this math. So why are we spending so much time on it?
Well, I think algebra is a process, so if you understand the problem-solving process of algebra,
but it makes people's lives miserable. Yeah. It makes a lot of people, well, it's great for you because you love it. That's the thing.
Right, your state legislature.
But we're making everybody do it for years and years and years.
Okay, we're getting off because we have no control over the state standards.
Well, I'm just curious. I have to ask it when I have the math person here. So.
Okay.
We're all looking for X and we don't know why.
That's true. Thank you for that.
So Carrie, the omissions that you updated this with, was there a logic or a reason to those omissions other than trying to appease a bunch of grumpy old people?
I was tasked with a challenge to review specifically the standards related to debt and if those needed to be included or not included. And to me, it doesn't make a difference either way. I just want a standard for what needs to be taught for the class.
So you're comfortable with the omission?
I am comfortable with the omission, and I am comfortable with the standards as placed. I would be okay either way.
Which do you prefer, to omit them or to keep them? Those standards that were omitted, would you prefer to keep them?
Well, I was careful when reviewing it.
You don't have to be careful right now.
I know. When you're looking at the standards, you'll notice that not all standards on debt were omitted. So teaching a process of making a good decision about whether to take a loan, how the terms of the loan work, and what taking on debt does to your credit score, and what's happening is still being taught. So it just depends at how much detail and you can see by what the omissions were, the areas that we kind of chose to focus less on, which was more on the legal side than on the mathematical side. We thought the mathematical process of that was very important, and terms of credit and how to make good decisions with it was important, and not necessarily like the legal ramifications. So that was why some of those decisions were made.
So if you take a look, Mrs. Cohen, at one of the ones that was omitted, apply strategies to avoid or correct debt management problems. I think that's something our students are going to encounter later in life. Or let's see, there was another one, give examples of legal and illegal debt collection practices. Again, that's delving much farther into the subject rather than understanding what happens when you go into debt and how that can affect the rest of your life. So with those particular ones, I mean, I think that's okay. You can only go so deep into a subject because you have so many other standards you've got.
And that's why I was okay with either process. If the board is in favor of us going through what the legal aspects are of debt and what occurs after that point, we would take that on and then teach those standards. If we are okay leaving that out, we would focus on the mathematical side of taking on debt.
Okay. I just want to make sure that our kids learn that they don't have to take on debt, that they can go to school without debt, that they can buy a home without a credit score, that these things are all possible. Just because nobody in this room maybe has done it, you can, any reputable, you can get underwrote for a loan with 20% down with a good work history. You don't have to have a high credit score. So I just want to make sure that our kids at least know that that's possible and not just hold one side.
I would feel very confident in our department that we would present that fairly to students.
Okay.
Okay, Mrs. Asar wants to make a comment.
If I may, I actually spent some time on these standards and looked specifically at the ones that were there and the ones that were taken out. And personally, I think that they should be removed. They were not really applicable when you think about the high school course and the number of standards that are there to be taught. I would even advocate and ask, because we've been talking about, as a district, simplifying and not trying to teach too much, but have students really have deep understanding of some key concepts. And in the key concepts in here, they talk about spending and saving. The first thing that they talk about really talks about how do you in fact save the money in order to do the things that you want to do, and delve deeply into that. And then in terms of if you decide to utilize credit, what are the decisions you need to make? What are the consequences out there for using credit? I mean, those kinds of things are addressed there. I would hope that there would be more standards that would be eliminated from the list before they actually do the course outline, because there's no way that students could deeply understand this information if they try to teach every standard that's listed here. And so just personally, I would say to omit these and that let departments and actually go through and determine what are the key standards that really need to be taught in this class for students to understand what they need to understand. And also knowing that the board has given very clear direction that we want students to understand that they do not have to incur debt and to understand the consequences of incurring debt.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor now that includes the omission of several standards. And does anyone else wish to add to the discussion?
I just want to make sure, you're going to look at the Dave Ramsey book.
Once we have standards set,
Yes.
yes, I
Thank
will
you.
be taking direction to review different types of curriculum, and that's been suggested, so I do not see any reason why we wouldn't review it.
Okay.
I don't see why at this stage we should omit all these standards if they cannot be included in the curriculum if and as required by Mrs. I forget your name.
Thompson.
Thompson. So I would say, this should be a step for the next stage when we are reviewing the curriculum, rather than at this stage just omit a whole bunch of standards and maybe we want to include them and then we have to do something to get something back.
Okay, at this point, the motion that we have includes omitting the standards. So if that motion fails, then perhaps you would want to make another motion, Mr. Mason.
Just a question, Superintendent Desire. On the question of curriculum that just came up, are we in a position where we're going to be ready to adopt curriculum in the next 3 months?
Curriculum for this particular course or curriculum?
For high school math? I know that's a loaded question.
Not in the next 3 months, no.
Okay. And you need these standards to develop over the summer.
That was the goal of our timeline, is to make sure that we had standards set so we have time in the summer when teachers have time to really look at what we want taught in the course.
And the standards that we're looking to adopt are only for the course of the next year.
Well, as per my motion.
Okay, I call for the question. Terry?
John Maston,
Yes.
Nicole Cohen,
No.
Lisa Ramon,
Yes.
Artayana Aliora,
No.
Kathy Cox,
Yes. Item 6.1, Mr. Gardner?
Madam President, the governing board is recommending the governing board approve Amplify Education Incorporated as a sole source provider and exclusive worldwide commercial source for the core knowledge language arts program for grades 3K and through 5, not to exceed $60,000. The Lake Havasu Unified School District, with board approval, created a magnet school at Oro Grande Elementary School. The classical education program was piloted in 2018-19 with kindergarten and first grade. The board then approved a recommendation to adopt the classical education program for the entire school, grades K through 6, starting the 2019-20 school year. The provider of the curriculum is the Core Knowledge Foundation. Through a series of agreements with the Core Knowledge Foundation, Amplify is the only authorized commercial provider of professional development and customer support for the implementation of this program, grades pre-K through 5. Since this is not part of a curriculum adoption and the cost of the program is over $5,000, we made every effort to locate 3 quotes from companies who might provide a similar program. We did our due diligence and followed the procurement rules, and then we secured the sole source letter, which is included as part of the materials provided to the board. Principal Brett Bitterman is in the process of selecting staff interested in teaching at the Rio Grande Classical Academy, and he is assisting with the organization of professional development, training, and implementation of the program. The approval of the aforementioned program is the next step in the process. This has been approved by business department and will not exceed $60,000.
Do I have a motion to approve 6.1?
I make a motion we approve 6.1 as presented.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Any discussion?
I'll just make a note that it does bother me that we only have one choice. I mean, it's kind of this or nothing, and so I do feel a little bit boxed in, but it doesn't seem like there's really anything that we can do about it. Is that correct?
As far as the provider of the materials.
Anyone else? Carrie?
Archana Allier,
Yes.
Lisa Roman,
Yes.
Nicole Cohen,
Yes.
John Maston,
Yes.
Kathy Cox.
Yes. Item 6.2, Mrs. Vestadegal.
Madam President and Governing Board, it is recommended that the Governing Board approve the contract for services with Educational Services Incorporated, ESI, for the subsource program for 2019-20. LHUSD is recommending the continuation of contracted services with ESI. ESI will continue to assume the cost of health care for our long-term substitutes, as well as offer health care for those substitutes that qualify. In 17-18, the district was able to save approximately $20,000 when compared to the fee paid to ESI and what the district would have paid for health insurance for long-term subs, both certified and classified. The district continues to be on track to save thousands of dollars in insurance in 18-19. Assigning these employees to ESI transfers the Affordable Care Act liability away from the district and allows the substitutes to work as often as they want. ESI provides substitute fairs throughout the year to grow the certified and substitute pool. They also provide training and onboarding services that are determined by LHUSD to align with our goals. Employers must continue to permit employees to accrue and use up to 40 hours of paid sick time per year. ESI will continue to track this benefit and pay for all eligible sick time without impact to the availability of substitutes for the district. Indemnification is provided to protect the district from fines, assessments, and penalties related to ACA and other legislative initiatives. Our substitutes will continue to work with our sub-coordinator and use ASOP to accept jobs. Our teachers and administrators will continue to be able to request specific substitutes through ASOP, work with our sub-coordinator, and provide feedback. Cost of the district will continue to be 10% of daily rate of substitute pay. ESI is currently on the MESC contract. This contract has been reviewed by purchasing and legal.
Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move that we approve 6.2 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion?
Jamie,
Yes.
was there any changes in the contract year over year?
It's exactly the same.
Anyone else? Okay, Carrie, I call for the question.
Lisa Roman,
Yes.
Nicole Cohen,
Yes. Yes.
John Maston,
Yes.
Archana Allier,
Yes.
Kathy Cox.
Yes. Okay, item 6.3 is about dress code, and as the presiding officer, I am, without making a motion, opening up this item for discussion.
You're out of order.
I do not believe that I am.
I will continue to object that you're out of order.
Okay, may I refer to our expert?
We have done it either way, so.
Okay, so the reason I'm doing it is it says that
it is recommended that the governing board discuss and if agreed upon, approve revisions to this regulation. And I think this would be the simplest way to do it, is have a discussion and without a motion. But before I do that, I would like to know, I don't see a lot of people here, so.
Madam President, I have a motion.
I move that we amend policy JICA-R in relation to bottoms to read, bottoms shall be fingertip length, free from rips, holes, frays, and tears above the base of the knee.
Second.
Okay, would you repeat that, please?
Bottoms shall be fingertip length, free from rips, holes, frays, and tears above the base of the knee.
I have it written here if you need it.
Okay. Did all of you get that? Okay, get that down. All right, I will withdraw my lack of emotion, which I did not make. And I am perfectly content, Mr. Maston, that we go down that road. What I want to know is that, is how many of you are here to speak to this item? How many of you plan to speak to the dress code item? Normally, do we have any students here? I know we had at least one parent here. I was assuming that would be your issue that you would want to speak on. I just need to assess how many people there are here before the board begins discussing this. Because if there are a lot, I'm going to give some instruction. How many people plan to speak? How many people in the audience plan to speak to this item? Please raise your hand. You may not know now. Okay, we've got one.
I have a question.
Oh, okay, we've got one. Okay, then that's fine. What I was going to do, I got this suggestion when I went to an Arizona School Board Association meeting, is that often these discussions, especially about dress code, can go on for 2 or 3 hours. And I thought if we had an audience that where there'd be a lot of discussion, that one solution or one way to address that would be to have those people who wish to speak to this issue to go out for about, take a 10-minute recess, have those people organize and find spokesmen for the different issues, and then have one spokesman speak on that opinion, rather than have the same person get up and speak again and again and again and say the same thing. So I thought that might be interesting to try that tonight, but I don't see a lot of people planning to speak. But that's for right now. Who knows what may happen? The evening is young. So we have a motion on the floor, and I will start with the board.
Sorry, can I ask, you said the base of the knee, so that's the bottom of the knee, is that correct?
Correct.
We have a motion on the floor. Mr. Madsen, you made it, so would you like to speak to that?
Sure. Without getting too deep into this, I've done a little bit of social media research, and I've done a little bit of talking to people here and there. I've pulled some of the discipline statistics over the past year, and it's been interesting, especially the statistical data. At the point that I pulled the data, we had 236 dress code referrals. And one of the themes that kept coming up in the discussions, especially in social media, was, gosh, you don't tax the boys for this. 89 of those 236 were boys. And it wasn't boys with bottoms, it was boys with jackets. And I've encouraged the people that I've talked to in the district about that to take a strong, hard look at jackets. Because if we're consequencing 89 boys and that's jackets, that's a bit much. 40 of those were first day offenses. So those are students testing the system. This is, gosh, let's see if I can get away with this. Are they actually going to enforce this? And so you take those out, and I'm just going to round it up to 100. We're about 100 in. I don't have numbers saying how many of those students were repeat offenders, but I would say that there's probably some there, and I would say that we're not well below 100, but I think we're a fair amount below that 100 number as far as overall student body offenses. In talking with administration people, I know factually that we give a good amount of warning. It's not a, gosh, you came to school, it's the first time we've seen you misdressed. So you're automatically, you know, going down for the 2-hour detention. I think we've done a good job in warning children. One of the problems with enforcement, though, is it becomes, as you enforce it, it becomes all or nothing. And one of the side effects of the current policy has been, we'll pick on the yoga pants that go down to the calves and they have a design in the side. That wasn't the intent of what we did. The intent wasn't to say that that was necessarily a hole. It's defined as a hole because it's a manufactured hole. Unfortunately, we also have manufactured holes that come in jeans nowadays, and those are fashionable. So is that manufactured hole actually a hole, or is that manufactured hole actually a hole? And you get into legalese over pants. I don't get it, but okay. The other thing I want to tell you is that in 2015, 2016, this was pretty much the policy. From the 15-16 Lake Havasu High School handbook, it says cut, torn, ripped clothing, or unhemmed cutoffs or pants are not permitted. So take the word fingertip out, and the way the policy stood back in the day, that was the policy. And we're not talking a decade or two ago, we're talking 3 years. So we didn't reinvent the wheel when we put it in, and it was a 4-0 vote of the last board that was seated here. And I think that this change to go to the bottom of the knee, the base of the knee, and take the hem standard out, I think accommodates a little bit of the modern fashion trend, but also gives us a standard that I think is enforceable, and I think we can do a better job with it as far as enforcement. So that's the logic behind it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
The revision that I would like to propose, and if this motion does not pass, I will put it forth as a motion. But my proposed dress code revision, and it will probably sound familiar because I think it was the one that the high school was asking for about a year ago at this time. Bottoms, pants, shorts or skirts must be fingertip length or longer and cover all undergarments. From waist to fingertip, clothing must be opaque with no holes, rips, tears, or frays. So in other words, your clothing would be expected to be full coverage down to that fingertip length. And then beyond that, if you have a frayed hem or a hole or a rip, that's not in a violation of the policy.
Thank you. Mrs.
Can you
Elliott.
just tell me how it was different from what we
Well, he was saying base of the knee, and I said fingertip. I feel like if you're gonna say that kids can wear shorts that are fingertip length, then you're already saying that it's okay for them to show their legs below that fingertip length. And so what is the difference if they wear shorts or if they have a hole at that point?
May I ask a question of you?
Of course.
And I've asked you this question before. Is student a professional title, and are students in a school required to be professionally dressed?
I would argue no. That they are the recipient of a public good and service, and that public education ought to be accessible to all students, regardless of whether they are dressed nicely enough to deserve it.
There is a valid discussion about professional dress. The high school student with jeans and the shirt, it's not professional. I don't think you can call it professional. You can say you need to look neat and clean and so forth, and that's a good thing. But the reason that the 4-0 board voted the way it did, this discussion was largely about professional dress. That we voted for professional dress. I didn't really believe in my heart. I didn't want to vote that way, but I could see that was the way it was going. I thought it was an important enough issue that the entire board vote the same way without any distinction. So I voted for it. But I don't really think in this day and time students know if they go to work. Some of them are asked to wear uniforms when they're in school. When they take jobs, they may not have a uniform, but their employer normally has some kind of dress code. Not always these days, because I go into businesses all the time where the owner has slit pants, you know. So this has caused me to do a lot of thinking in the last year. So I don't think we're going to resolve tonight whether students should dress professionally. It's a good question, but I just don't think we can resolve that the way teenagers are.
Fair enough, but I would also point out as an employer, I have not hired people by the way they were dressed because they would not meet a professional dress standard. And they were students at our high school.
Okay, and I don't doubt that.
I'll give one more little anecdote. My brother and my dad are both civil engineers. Although my dad's retired, but engineering is a profession, and they often wear jeans out to job sites to inspect bridges or different construction sites, and their jeans are not always in good repair. They have a hem or a frayed hem or a worn out knee. They are professionals because of what they do and what they know. They're not professionals because of what they wear.
I have something interesting to say. When we discussed this, when we were four of us on the school board, I said there's going to be something else coming down the pike. There always will be with dress code. It will go into infinity. And there is something, it's out there. I don't know if our students know about it or not, but I saw it demonstrated on TV the other day. The latest style, somewhere back east, is down from the hips. There's an inset put in. The big, like this, is cut out each side. And then it's filled in with a material that is a mesh, and it stretches. And it depends on what the mesh is as much, as far as what you can actually see through when you see through the mesh. And I mean, that's going to be one big flesh-colored hole right there. And we're going to have to look and say, oh, what am I looking at? And if the gauge of the mesh is small enough, probably there's not an issue with it, but I predict that the gauge of the mesh will not be small, and that it will be like see-through, like almost like a net. So I mean, I think that's where we're going, and I'm asking the high school to anticipate that.
Well, that would be covered. I did use the word opaque.
In yours you did, but that's not where we are right now with this. But this
cover all undergarments, isn't it?
What'd you say?
Cover all undergarments, isn't it?
Yes. Okay. So that should take care of it. But just this is a warning.
But the other side of this argument, and what we've all got to realize, is dress code is nobody is happy. I can tell you where whatever you want to the legal limit, and there will be people who are unhappy with that. I can say, let's go to a full enforced uniform, down to brand name. Nobody's going to be happy with that. The thing that kept coming up, especially from the students, was compromise. Compromise, compromise, compromise. Where we're at, and whether we go to the knee, or to the fingertip, or all the way down, and we enforce hems, this is all in the area of compromise, because we're not at one end of the spectrum, nor are we at the other. And again, no matter where we wind up in this, no matter what the final outcome is tonight, nobody's going to like it. Because either somebody's bugging you about it, somebody's enforcing it on you, or some parent's hearing about it and going, they're not going to do that to my kid. Somebody's not going to be happy with this. And we're going to hear about it regardless of what we do. And as long as we start to realize that, I think we're going to be okay in our discussion.
And I could just say, Mary Jo Mulligan, principal at Thunderbolt, when we had the expectation of if the holes and all of that was okay below the fingertip, it was very easy to explain to middle school students. It's about modesty. The rule is fingertip. We don't want to see skin up here. It was very easy. It just got a little trickier this year. I supported it. I always say, you don't agree with it, come talk to the board and share your thoughts. But it really was easy to do, and then we talked to parents and they'd say, no, that makes sense, because we said fingertip length. So up here, we want to be all covered and all of that. Fully support that. It made our job so much easier to not have to determine how much tush is showing. So much easier. But It got a little bit harder this year with all the way down, so that's just my perception.
I have a concern with the fingertip length as it is written, and that is, if you're at the high school students, I don't know about middle school, but high school students are carrying their books, they're carrying stuff with them, and they've got 5 minutes to get from one building to the next. It's just not reasonable for an administrator to stop a student like that with his arms full and say, wait just a minute, put your stuff down, I want to check your arm length. They're not going to do it. And so to me, that rule is virtually unenforceable because it's not doable. It won't be done because administrator is just not going to do what I said, just said.
It was very easy, I'll just say that.
Okay.
Because we had, remember we did it as a first period check, as kids come in the door, and then we called it good.
I don't know what we do at the high school now, Mr. Becker. What do we do with fingertip to check it out at the high school?
We don't do the fingertip. I mean, we do the fingertip when it's short season, but as far as the way that it's written right now, I will agree with Mary Jo that it is much easier with the fingertip rather than, all right, is that really below the kneecap now? I mean, it's gonna cause enforcement issues, and the two people to my right and left, they're the ones that bear the brunt of it, and they do a great job of supporting it, and we did at the high school as well with the policy that was put in place, but the enforcement part of at the fingertip it is much easier.
Why isn't it just easier to glance at a student and see that the holes are below the knee?
So I mean, for example, we have girls right now in the fashion of the skirt, and it's a corduroy skirt, and it looks very professional. It is frayed the slightest little bit along the hem at the bottom, and they look extremely professional, and they're getting dress coded for that right now, or given an option to call and get a change of dress because it is frayed. So even with the kneecap, unless that skirt is below the kneecap, then we're addressing that still at the high school.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Should our dress code conform to fashion trends?
And as I stated before, when I was asked my personal opinion last year, I'm not gonna, in a public place with my position, give my personal input on that.
So if, my question has meaning, because fashion is 2 or 3 years here, 2 or 3 years there. Should we as a district be altering our policy every 2 or 3 years to keep up with the fashion trend?
We do it every day.
I would say that we're not though. It doesn't matter what the fashion is, if we can stick with fingertip doesn't make me look at girls' legs, it's just fingertip. And it doesn't matter what the fashion trend is, if it follows it from here up, what the policy says. We don't have to change our policy. From here up, we follow it. And I don't believe we are.
And I think a big part has to go along with the point that Ms. Rahman made. We're already saying that some things are fingertip length are okay, but then we say a hole or whatever is okay if it's below the knee, then we have this gap here that just creates, that's when we run into issues. When we're trying to decide intent, when we're trying to make those decisions, I think from an enforcement standpoint, from an understanding standpoint, below the fingertip just cleans everything up.
I'd like to put my 2 cents in. I grew up in a uniform and I'm very conservative and I like that. But nowadays, if you go to most IT businesses where the employees do not have to interact with outsiders, they're dressed in anything, pajamas or jeans. And, you know, that's the truth. And I often go to Wall Street because that's my background from there. And it's instead of suits and ties, they are now in polos and they're going to work. It's just becoming less formal. And I do support, I'm just new to this discussion, but I do like the fingertip length myself based on that. Even though I'm conservative. Meaning my 2 bits.
Mr. Masson, has that caused you to think? I can see the wheels turning.
It has caused me to think.
Okay.
It has not caused me to change my
Okay, all right, okay. So, I'm opening this up for discussion from the audience. Any, yes, can you come up to the mic and give your name?
Christina Musselman, Starline. My only thing with this discussion coming back up, and I brought it up before, is teaching first grade. My boys are rough and tough. They have holes in their knees. I feel guilty still saying, hey buddy, you can't wear those to school. I gotta send you up to the nurse to get another pair of pants. If we went back to the fingertip, I'm not discriminating against my boy who has a hole in the knee versus my little girl who, yes, her whole leg is showing. And I mean, fingertip length, I'm seeing her whole thigh basically, and then I have a little hole in the knee and I'm having to send him up. So my 2 cents as an elementary teacher.
As a parent of elementary students, I have bought for my youngest son probably 12 to 14 pairs of Levi's this year because of that exact issue.
As a 10-year-old mom, I am doing the same thing. As yesterday, my son went to the Capitol as a 4th grader, and they were told to dress professional. To me, dress professional necessarily was not wearing jeans, but his gray pants and his black pants both had holes in the knees. I couldn't send him. So he went to the Capitol in jeans, and that was professional enough for a 10-year-old, yes. But to me, that wouldn't have been what I picked, but so, thank you.
That is part of the reasoning, I'm glad you brought that up, that is part of the reasoning behind the revision behind the revision that I'm proposing. That the current policy does create an undue financial strain on families. Clothing does wear out, and not every family has the resources, either the time or the money, to repair or replace clothes throughout the school year.
Okay, thank
One
you.
of the things, though, that I think you miss is there is an upward financial pressure, especially on, I'm just going to pick on the ripped jeans. Ripped jeans, we can get upwards of $400 pretty darn quick on what's displayed in Google search results. I just put in women's ripped jeans, and the number 3 result is north of $300. I think, when I say I bought 12 to 14 pairs of jeans for my son, I'm not buying him $300 pairs of jeans. I'm buying him $10, $11, $12 pairs of jeans. In fact, in looking at this, the most expensive pair of jeans that you can buy for your children is that ripped pair of jeans. The problem is when we start talking about economics in this and what parents pay, we've got a standardized shirt. One of the biggest things that we did with the standardized shirt, how inexpensive can we make a standardized shirt? Because we don't want to penalize parents. And yet when we start talking about bottoms, let's open up the floodgates, especially when you understand girls don't dress for boys, they dress for other girls. We're starting an arms race is what we're doing when we do some of this stuff. If we really wanted to help our parents and we really wanted to control their costs, it's not the $10 or $12 pair of elementary kids' jeans that we should be worrying about. It's literally the fashion trend stuff and the upward pressure from it.
Okay. It seems to me that we have a consensus from the high school administration that they want to keep the current policy. No? You want to go back to, you want to go back to fingertip. And Mr. Maston's motion is for, at the base, is the base of the knee. And Mrs. Mulligan, you spoke in favor of the fingertip.
Correct. With the approved, like the holes, whatever you want to call them, below the fingertip allowed.
Okay. Do any other principals wish to speak to this?
I don't know if I speak for everybody. I know for Jamaica, I feel the same. I think what we have to deal with is a lot of the times I'll use an example similar to the little boy scenario. I mean, I have 6th grade boys who wear out their jeans left and right. I mean, and I'm lucky if their families can keep up with doing the laundry each week. So if they're coming to school and they have a hole in their jean that's right at their knee or just below their knee, and I have to, and some of these children deal with the stigma of having to, deal with the fact that they had to go to the principal to go change their clothes, to I mean, that's just not something that sometimes I feel like is important in that particular scenario. So I agree that that's important. It's definitely important for us above the knee. But I think it would place a little bit more levity on what we can deal with regard to below the knee.
I would then amend my motion to differentiate at the elementary school that we say above the knee.
I think one of the concerns is that people wanted to
I'm
keep.
sorry, I've worked to amend my motion. I'm looking to see if the second will be amended.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Your motion is just for the elementary schools?
Just, the amendment is just for the elementary schools.
Just for the elementary schools, and you are amending that it says for the elementary schools above the knee,
Above the knee.
not fingertip. Okay, so do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
It's my understanding that people that I've spoken with in the district would like a comprehensive policy that addresses K through 12, that they don't want it differentiated between the different grade levels.
You know, I don't see anybody here, and we got exactly one email as board on this topic, so.
That was to go to uniforms.
I received 3 emails.
I'm sorry, I'm right
Just a minute.
mid-sentence.
Just a minute.
So I'm not sure how big of an issue is. I think most people are tired of hearing about it, to be honest. It's overdone. So whatever we're gonna do, I understand what they're saying at the elementary level. It makes total sense. I really don't even have a problem. I just didn't want to see butts anymore, and that's what we were seeing when we first started this a couple of years ago. So I think we should just go with the fingertip length, be done with it, and move on.
But you seconded his amendment.
I did,
Okay.
but now I haven't talked at all during this whole thing, because I don't understand why.
Go for it.
So-
Anything else you wanted to add?
No, but will you amend your amended motion?
If I may make a comment, I do want to share that I did have, based on several board members' requests, I did talk with several administrators and other staff. Mrs. Mulligan said it, you can't see anything above fingertip length. The opaque is important from the standpoint that some of the kids have, their underwear is not showing, but then they have those mesh squares going down their legs as well. And so that was an important point that we did come up to last year. Mr. Madden, you mentioned about the holes that are in the yoga pants. We also have mesh squares in the hole of the yoga pants that you can see through. So that was an important point that we were enforcing this past year. That was an issue as well.
So, here we are. So, John, would you repeat your amended amendment?
At middle school and high school, bottom shall be fingertip length, cover all undergarments, be free from rips, holes, frays, and tears above the base of the knee. At the elementary schools, it's above the knee.
Okay? One last chance.
Huh?
Okay, read it again, John.
The difference is that at the upper grade levels, the middle school and the high school, it is above the base of the knee. At the elementary schools, it's above the knee.
I don't know what the difference is. So.
I don't either, but I hear a lot of resistance to anything that I say all of a sudden.
So it's not resistance to what?
Say your name again, please.
My name is Lauren McGregor, Pavement Starling. Why can't it be uniform across the board? Because
You want
if you
uniforms?
just, you know what? I'm good either way. I'm fine with the child wearing uniforms. Other schools do it. That way, there's no, well, this is okay and that's not okay, but this is okay and it's not okay this time. Uniforms, okay, that's one subject I'm fine with. But I agree with the principals. They're the ones that are dealing with the kids. If you can just say, fingertips, I don't want any holes above it, the kids are gonna get that. You're not gonna have as many fights with the kids over it. And if you said yourself that kids are asking for compromise, and these ladies and gentlemen deal with these kids every day, they're trying to give you a compromise. They're saying that this is gonna be easier for them to deal with the students. That'll cut, I don't know what it's called in every school, but detentions, nights, whatever it might be. That's less time that they gotta deal with the kids about that, so they can deal with matters that are more important than I've worked with them, with kids, well, not kids, students at the high school that were part of jobs that I've had that got detention for having a hole near their ankle. Now, I'm not exactly a tall person, and the pants that I'm wearing right now are gonna have a fray at the bottom if I wear them often, okay? So they were frustrated over having a night over a tear at their foot, and I understand that. It took time away from these principals doing their job in a different way to talk to that kid about a hole by their ankle. If they're saying, please meet us at fingertip, why can't you do that? Why does it have to be different for the little kids, different for the middle school, and different for the high school?
Didn't want it that way. What I'm hearing from people is that it is inconvenient to have the current dress code. And when I made a recommendation on it, that is now inconvenient. What bothers me is that we cannot have a dress code unless the parents agree and the administration agrees and the teachers agree. If you really want to get to the heart of it, there's a community out there that plowed $72 million into this school system in the 2016 election. And when I talk to the vast majority of the community, they want a higher standard for our students all the way around, including dress code.
That's true. I've heard that a lot, actually.
I've heard that you can't make us do this, that this is illegal, that you're targeting girls, and yet when the Today Show contacted me, wanting to know why I was targeting girls with a dress code policy, I sent this out, the one that we did last year. Never heard back from the reporter, and there was never a story run, because before we went in, we were talking about what leggings were permissible, and what this was permissible, what that was permissible. This is a federally compliant dress code. It complies with Title 19. When you talk to people from our community that actually go to the high school in this past year, they are much happier with what they see at that high school. They were not happy when they went in and they saw the picture in the paper when the girls were wearing the short shorts. Do we really want to have pictures on the front of our local newspaper that show the girls in the short shorts at the front of the school? Is that what we're about as a community? Or are we about raising kids to go out into the world and to be functional? I don't want to have to talk to a graduate of Lake Havasu High School who can't understand why I don't want him wearing ripped pants to the civil engineer's house from San Diego who's doing $1 million edition, and have him argue back at me that the ripped jeans and the sweat-stained t-shirt are what he's going to wear to go up there and work. Even after I offer to do his laundry, pay for him to take a shower, and do all the things in my business that I do. I have interns from the high school come to me so they can work in my company where it's a polo shirt and a pair of slacks. They come in shorts, ripped jeans, flip-flops. We say that we teach our children how to dress. And almost all the interactions that I have, with maybe one or two exceptions, they're not dressing that way when they interact with me in a professional setting. I have problems with how I see our students in the community, and the community does as well. This isn't just me, folks. I'm the guy that went out, I'm the guy that interacted with people during that bond election. I'm the guy that talked to the community. This plugs more than just me. And as a representative of the community, you're a part of that, but you're not the majority in that. As a representative in the community, I am asked to make change in certain ways, and that's what I have set out to do. I'm sorry if you don't like it. I get branded with this, even though it was a 4-0 vote. My kids are harassed at school over the dress code. I don't know what else to say to folks. And when I come up with compromise, I'm immediately told that we have to do it this way, not the way that you propose, because that's actually compromise. I've just had it with the topic. Because, dirty little secret, we don't follow it now. We produced a video of a teacher in A-Hall doing a pep rally for test week in ripped jeans Our staff doesn't follow the policy that we put on the kids. Honestly, wear whatever you want. I really personally don't care. But if we're going to have a dress code, let's have a dress code. And let's have a set of standards that set the children up for success in the real world. If we don't care, why do we have them? Why do we have standardized shirts? Why are we doing any of this? It doesn't make any sense to me as an individual person. But if we're going to have a dress code, let's have something that makes sense, that will send children out into the real world.
Did you have anything further to say?
So I understand your
Anything further
frustration.
to say? What?
I do. I understand your frustration. You are actually talking to a graduate of this high school. I was here when there was no dress code. I dressed respectfully. I never got in trouble for the way I dressed. My parents taught me how to dress very well. I can actually wear this to work. On special occasions, we do like a blue jean Friday, but generally it's slacks, something respectful and appropriate, and I fully follow what my employers tell me to do. So I get that you're frustrated that some people don't get that, but a lot of us do. My daughter is to the point where she's either, you know what, I'm done with it, why don't you just have us wear uniforms? Unfortunately, she's not here today, she's kind of shy sometimes, but she's fed up with it because of everything changing. But these ladies and gentlemen are telling you, like, they're giving you an idea of, they understand what you're saying. I'm not trying to speak for you guys, but they're saying they hear what you're trying to propose, but it sounds like you're trying to change it, if I'm right or wrong, per school. You said for the younger kids it would be, what was your?
Actually, my original motion was to have one single standard for the entire district.
Was that today or was that months ago?
That was today.
Okay.
Months ago as well.
Okay.
And over a year ago.
Okay.
We've gone through this in stages.
Okay.
And when we go back again to 15, 16, in writing, what we have today is darn near the same standard. It's worded a little bit differently, but when we say that there must be a hem, I took the word hem out of here. I'm not asking for a hem. I'm trying to meet you guys at middle ground and still preserve some semblance of something. But my original motion was district-wide. We got resistance, and we got, okay, kids are the lower grades are gonna put holes in their knees and so on. Okay, then we go to accommodate that, and I'm just being squeezed here every way I go.
But, so they were just asking if you could do fingertip length, because all kids are different sizes.
I'm gonna withdraw my motion, if Mrs. Cohen will withdraw her second. And I'm going to recuse myself on voting on anything involving the dress code moving forward.
May I just clarify? I think maybe, because I'm asking exactly for the same thing that they are asking for. I think the clarification is that we are definitely seeing way more below the knee issues than we are seeing above the knee. So I think that if I'm understanding correctly, that is what everybody's looking for, is to make sure that everything is clarified below the knee. Fingertips, and then holes, rips, spurs, tears below the knee. Yes, correct. Making sure that I wasn't misunderstood. So we're all asking for the same thing, but I was just trying to give you our perspective from what we're seeing at the elementary level. So I don't think my explanation is any different.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm going to completely tap out of the conversation.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was clear. I apologize if that was misunderstood.
I'm just done.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to express my appreciation to Mr. Maston for his willingness to try to find some kind of a middle ground. And I can tell he's thought about it a lot and worked really hard to do that. It just seems like it's an almost impossible issue. But Mr. Maston, I sincerely do mean that his motion has been withdrawn. And so here we are with, do we have a motion on the floor?
Here.
Okay, we do not have a motion on the floor. Is there a motion to be made?
I would like to propose or to move that we adopt the following dress code policy. Bottoms, pants, shorts, or skirts must be fingertip length or longer and cover all undergarments. From waist to fingertip, clothing must be opaque with no holes, rips, tears, or frays.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a second. Now we're going to discuss the new motion. I'm going to start with Mrs. Mulligan. Mrs. Mulligan, how does that motion comport with what you first brought?
That's exactly what was easy to enforce last year.
Okay, Mr. Becker, do you agree?
With Ms. Mulligan's statement, yes.
And Mrs. Healert?
Yes, I'd have to defer to the rest of the principals, but I agree with that, yes.
Do any other principals want to add to that?
I'm also in agreement to that. It's very
Okay.
easy to reinforce.
Mr. Berger?
I agree with that as well, and it's important to keep the middle school, high school, and elementary school all consistent.
Okay.
I have one question on it, and it's just from a legal perspective. We're pointing out individual garments within that statement. Does that then comport to Title IX?
Did you have the word individual garments in there?
I did. I used the existing dress code language as my guide.
Actually, that's not consistent.
I guess I could review, but I'm pretty sure I saw something parenthetical that said pants, shorts, or skirts.
It just says bottoms.
It just says, okay.
So do you want to amend?
I will revise or amend.
Ask Mrs. Alliard if she will withdraw her second.
Will you withdraw your second?
Do you have to withdraw it to
This-
And now you may, it's easier just to make a new motion rather than amend it, I think. Go ahead, make your motion.
I'm amending it.
Well, it's going to be a new motion, I think, just say
Is it a new motion, Terry?
Yes, because you withdrew.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it, okay. If you can't tell, I'm relatively new here.
Doesn't matter, it never gets easier.
Bottoms must be fingertip length or longer and cover all undergarments. From waist to fingertip, clothing must be opaque with no holes, rips, tears, or frays.
Okay, any further discussion? Oh, second, do we have a second? Thank you. Any further discussion from parents, teachers, administrators, or anyone? Okay, any further discussion from the board? All right, Terry, I call for the question.
Nicole Cohen,
Yes.
John Maston,
No vote.
He abstains.
Arcana Eliar,
Yes.
No voting.
Lisa Ramont,
Yes.
Kathy Cox,
Yes. So the motion passes, and then this will not take effect until next school year. Is that correct, Mrs.?
Yes, it would be for the 1920 school year.
Okay, and then the handbooks will all be amended accordingly. Okay. All right, item 6.4, let's see, Mr. Gardner.
Madam President, the governing board, it is recommended the governing board approve the revisions to the district's 2019, 2020, and 2020-21 school calendars. In 2018, the calendars were revised to align elementary and secondary early release days, reflecting a positive change with the addition of elementary specialist teachers. The board also approved the master teacher grant, which allowed LHUSD to revise the professional development calendar and create more opportunities for horizontal articulation. This year, each site had the opportunity to share concerns and suggestions with the board regarding curriculum and resources. A common request was the need for more planning time and for more collaboration. LHUSD now has the opportunity to provide more planning time and more opportunities for collaboration by grade band and department by moving to a common early release K-12 each week. The additional early release time allows our district to address curriculum revisions and trainings and to provide differentiated professional development based on needs of staff. With the recommended change in our calendars, every school meets the required seat time minutes for instruction, so we are in compliance with ARS 15-901.
Is there a motion?
I move we approve 6.4 as presented.
I second.
Any discussion? The only thing I have to say is this was one of the issues that the staff brought up when the board met at the different schools. Time for teachers to collaborate and plan. And I'm so pleased that the administration found a way to address this, so thank you. And it means when my name is called out, I'm going to end up voting for it, but my name hasn't been called yet, so Mrs. Fleming.
John Maston,
Yes.
Archana Eliar,
Yes.
Lisa Roman,
Yes.
Nicole Cohen,
Yes.
Kathy Cox.
Yes. Okay, next item, 6.5 is Mrs. Asante.
Madam President, members of the board, it is recommended that the governing board approve the 2019-20 elementary school student handbook. There is one unified elementary school student handbook for all district elementary schools. The elementary student handbooks will be available online for students, parents, and staff, and I will mention that they will be available if they would like a copy in paper. A copy of the elementary school handbook was provided to the governing board prior to the meeting, and principals are available to answer any questions. I would like to note that the changes to the handbook, we did send out via email on April 11th an additional substitution for the food service section because it was revised based on our new contract with Taher. And this would also include the revision to the dress code that the board just made. So those two changes would be in the handbook.
Okay, a motion, please.
I vote to.
I move to approve 6.5 as presented.
A second.
I second.
Okay, discussion.
I just have a question on the citizenship. Why we're changing may from shall to may.
On what?
Elementary handbook, page
Oh.
9, citizenship. Attendance and homework completion may have an impact on the citizenship grade.
Okay, elementary principals, can you respond to that?
Corey Triasi, Starline. It's because there's 6 different elementary schools and it really depends on the school and giving the teachers a little leeway in there because every child's different, so, and individual. So if a teacher deems that there was an incident and there's a rationale and reason and the parents discussed it, we didn't want to make it quite so strict and firm that no matter what, it affected that. So it gives the teachers just a little leeway because things happen in families' lives.
Thank you, Ms. Tarasi. Any other discussion by the board? All right, call for the question.
Archana Eliar,
Yes.
Lisa Roman,
Yes.
Nicole Cohen,
Yes.
John Maston,
No.
Kathy Cox.
Yes. Item 6.6, Mrs. Asante.
Thank you. This is the middle school handbook, and again, the changes are noted. We did update the same change that was for the elementary school for the Tahoe food service, and the other change that will be made based on tonight will be the dress code.
Do I have a motion? I so move. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes. So, same kind of, along the same lines, so why are we, making it more lax with the tardy and especially in middle school when they're all bused? Like, why are we taking it from the 4th offense to the 5th offense, for tardy consequences?
So that actually matches, so students are allowed 4 absences per quarter matches the law of the 10% per year. So they're allowed 4, so the 5th, really what we should have been doing it that way, in my opinion, all along. Because
Okay.
5 exceeds what they're allowed.
What they're allowed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other discussion or questions from the board?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I have my notes here. Oh, this is probably the same thing. Regularly attends school no more than 8 absences per semester. 8 absences? The 9 would result in a lower citizenship grade?
So the reason we changed that, because we had it 4 per quarter, same thing, if they hit 5 per quarter, we adjusted that, actually we had some discussion up here at the district level, because the high school allows 8 per semester. So we adjusted to match the high school. And the other rationale behind the change is we have a good handful of students that are actually competing in nationwide. I have a boy who's in Europe this week in soccer. And the 4 per quarter, their competitions would put them over that. So then they can't be in some of our clubs. But to move that to 8 per semester, it's still the same amount that they're allowed. It just gives them an opportunity, if they are out of town competing, it spreads it out. So we really aligned it to match the high school. So still 4 per quarter, but we just made it 8 per semester.
Okay.
And that was not made on my own. That was some discussion.
Anything else, Mrs. Coe?
When our students are competing during a normal scheduled school day, do we lose ABM on that?
We actually do not get paid on attendance, we get paid on enrollment.
Okay.
This also applies though for a student who might be ill and miss 5 days. They would get a lower citizenship grade, but maybe not miss any other days the rest of the semester. So
well, I'm thinking back to a parent that was being threatened by the school district to be turned in for excessive absences, and here it looks like we're lowering the standards and we're talking about kids who are competing, and so I'm just wondering where that, where that breakdown is.
Still, so it's absolutely 100% aligned with the law, which is 10% per quarter, 4 per quarter, 8 per semester. So we're not changing the number that's allowed in any way.
Right.
Because we don't want to do that here.
Can I add one more comment? Because we had a student at Sterling who had bereavement days off, and so that's why I wanted to look at it individually. Because they had to travel to go to a funeral for grandfather, and I'm not going to let that affect citizenship because it was that. If it's their attendance is chronic issues, then, you know, it will affect. But I like to look at each individual student's case separately.
And we don't do that.
And I know, that was my choice as a principal, and there's 6 of us in the district.
No, I'm not questioning you. I just wanted to clarify this.
Yes, thank you.
Nothing else, Mrs. Cohen? Okay. Call for the question, please.
Nicole Cohen?
Yes.
John Maston?
Yes.
Lisa Roman?
Yes.
Archana Alliar?
Yes.
Debbie Cox?
Yes. Item 6.7, Mrs. Asina.
Thank you. It is recommended that the governing board approve the name change of Oro Grande Elementary School to Oro Grande Classical Academy. We had talked about this when we moved forward to approve the K-6 magnet, but it requires a board action for us to be able to change the name. Because we have changed the teaching focus to classical education model, we would like to be able to have the name reflect that for families that are seeking these options within our community, as well as for those who are exploring our community and seeking options, that the name would convey the actual intent of magnet school. So with the governing board's approval, we would be able to request the name change and have that officially done for all state and federal documentation.
Discussion?
I move that we approve 6.7 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay.
I did have one thing.
Okay.
So we're just talking about changing the name, like on things like letterhead, or are we talking about making a new school sign, or?
Yes, we actually have already ordered lettering for the school.
Okay.
So what this would do is, for example, if you went on the state website and looked at all of our school data, it would show up as, right now it's Oro Grande Elementary School, it would show up as Oro Grande Classical Academy. So it officially changes the name on all of the official documentation at the state level, as well as letterhead and everything else. So.
Is there a legal fee associated with the name change?
No.
What about the sign out in front of Oro Grande PTAC? We spent a lot of time raising money
I think that there's some plans to replace that sign, but I don't have the definitive answer, I don't think.
Yeah, we,
You are there, okay,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, we've raised money the last 2 years, sorry, via Apex fund run, so we have about $20,000 we've raised. We're also gonna go out and look for sponsorship. So we're gonna try to, I know Mr. Murray would love to purchase that sign for us. You know, I haven't sent that email yet, but we're trying to work on our own to get that done, so.
All right, Terry?
I'm sorry. I'm rooting for the success of this school, just like I'm rooting for the success of every school in the elementary. This is, the upcoming school year will be our first year where it's implemented school-wide. So we don't know, it just seems premature to me, I guess. Especially, I don't really have an objection to changing it on the letterhead, but I think if you change the school sign itself, what happens if you decide that this actually isn't a good fit for the district and you have to change it back?
Well, then we'll have the old one.
I'll keep the other one in storage,
Yeah.
and then we'll switch it out if necessary.
I hate to be the fly in the ointment, I just wanted to make sure that that had at least been
It's something that
considered.
needs changed either way, name or regardless, because it's as Mr. Morgan can attest to, you know, our lettering and everything else is basically broken, and it's an old sign. So one way or another, we're going to have it changed.
All right, Carrie?
Lisa Roman,
Yes.
Nicole Coley,
Yes.
John Maston,
Yes.
Archana Elliott,
Yes.
Kathy Cox.
Yes. Item 6.8, Mr. Murray.
Madam President, members of the board, it is recommended the governing board approve a name change to one of Starline Elementary's tax credit clubs. The recommendation is to change the name of the after-school tutoring club to the after-school academic intervention club. In order to provide resources which better align with the objectives and move on when reading, an intervention approach to learning is a more accurate representation of the club. The name change will clarify the purpose of the club and differentiate itself from other clubs. Upon closure of the club, the school district site-based council will authorize the transfer of funds to one or more tax credit eligible clubs or activities.
I move we approve 6.8 as presented.
I second.
Discussion? Carrie? I'm sorry.
I have a question, because I don't like the name change. I don't like changing it from tutoring to intervention. Intervention implies that, you know, it's just got a certain ring to it, if you will. So I'm kind of curious if we're doing this under the guide, you know, it's saying in order to provide more resources, like this, the rationale doesn't make sense, let me put it that way. So maybe one of the two of you can further explain the rationale, because if this is in fact the reason for changing the name, then shouldn't all the after-school tutoring, homework, whatever clubs change their name to an intervention club?
Well, as mentioned in the rationale, in talking to Ms. Triasi about this, Move On When Reading has some verbiage in there about intervention type programs. A large part of the change, though, is in that last sentence in the second paragraph. The name change will clarify the purpose, but also differentiate itself from other programs. Currently, we have tutoring clubs within our title schools. So they are provided title funding through Title I. Starline is not a title school. Jamaica's not a title school. The high school's not a title school. So a lot of it is to differentiate it, but also to align with Move On When Reading, as that's not a title school.
Is that a requirement with Move On When Reading, that the tax credit club has intervention in it?
No, the name change was just something that Ms. Triasi was
indicated I
wanting it
couldn't
to
use
be
the
an
word
intervention
tutoring,
type
so I
focus.
was trying to differentiate it from homework. It was suggested that I use the word homework club, but it's not a homework club. It's not kids doing homework. It's certified teachers doing small group instruction for intervention. So since I was not being allowed to use tutoring, I was trying to differentiate from homework, because that's not what it is. It's a homework club. I see that as different, because I was asked why I don't call it a homework club, and homework club is kids coming and doing homework. Intervention is teachers teaching kids who are struggling. And parents unless I'm speaking out of turn, are very familiar with the word intervention in school.
I'm not talking about parents.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about kids. And little kids don't like to be pulled out of their class for intervention. I've heard about that multiple times. It makes them feel bad. So when I think about, and everybody's all about how the kids feel, I mean, they feel, you know, like they're being treated differently.
I'm open to suggestions.
So I'm
is all
just
I can say.
wondering that an after-school club using the same term that's used for something that I've heard about on multiple occasions from different people,
right?
Why we would do that, that's all.
Well, it was indicated to me as a principal I needed to adjust the name. So we didn't
I think my students
coincide
like
with Title
coming
I.
for intervention, but that's all.
Did someone want to speak, Mrs. Healy?
I don't know if it would help to clarify, but when we have to put our information into Yvonne when reading, a lot of times we're asked to put in a synopsis of the types of things that we're doing to address student needs. And this after-school program sometimes come into play, so if we're differentiating whether or not it's intervention versus tutoring, that might clarify it for the state as far as the intent of the club, so that it's not thought of, like, for example, the district has a list of tutors that's available, so it differentiates it from that set of tutoring versus just a school-wide intervention that takes place after school versus during the school day. So I don't know if that helps, but that's what Move On When Reading does ask of us. So,
Mrs. Triossi?
Yes.
Is this just for Move On while reading, or is this for math and other subjects?
It's math and reading. Right now, because of our limited funding at Starline, we're using United Way funding. I did open this tax credit account, but it's in the process of just getting people to realize it's there and to donate to it. But the main focus is our children that are struggling in math and reading.
So you could call it student instructional assistance or something along that line?
Yes, we could call it something else if we deemed that
and just indicate on the paperwork that it's an intervention.
Yes, my feeling is we use the term intervention quite a bit in our school setting with multiple stakeholders, and I thought it would be clearer than making it nebulous and people don't know what it is.
Because in my experience, schools get calls a good bit from parents, do you have any kind of tutoring for me? And to most teachers, that suggests something quite different from intervention. And it sounds to me that this is more of an intervention program. Am I right? It's not really tutoring?
Yes, I mean, if it has a negative connotation, we can switch it up. I'm not like tied to it, but just trying to make it, it's not really enrichment though. I consider enrichment like something that extends learning. This is for children that are struggling learners and they need that extra support. So,
Just seems like intervention in club, just don't go.
Well, because
like,
it's after school, we can take it out. It's just after school.
Well, right now we have a motion on the floor.
It's fine, I just asked the question, but it does come up.
So
Can't be the only one that's
let's
that.
call for the question, and if it fails, then we will propose a name for Ms. Triossi and see how she likes it.
Thank you.
Well, I'm not interested in it.
I know you're
Bring a
not.
red shot over
I know.
that, that
No,
wasn't
I-
my point.
I know, no, but, okay. Carrie?
Nicole Cohen?
Yes.
John Maston?
Yes.
Jana Elliott?
Yes.
Lisa Roman?
Yeah.
Kathy Cox?
Yes. Okay. Item 6.8. Let's see. Gotta flip the page. Mr. Gardner, item 6.9.
Madam President of the Governing Board, it is recommended that the Governing Board approve the required annual filing of the fiscal year 2020 General Statement of Assurance to the Arizona Department of Education. Further, it is recommended that Brad Gardner, Agnes Walter, Michael Murray, and Michelle Hughes be authorized agents for federal grants. Each year, the Department of Education is required to have on file a general statement of assurance from all schools, districts applying for federal funds. The Governing Board must approve this annual statement, and the superintendent will complete the digital signature on the GSA electronically. A copy of the 2020 General Statement of Assurance will be provided electronically to the Governing Board prior to the April 16th board meeting.
Is there a motion?
I move we approve 6.9 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Terry?
John Maston,
Yes.
Anna Alliar,
Yes.
Lisa Roman,
Yes.
Nicole Collins,
Yes.
Kathy Cox.
Yes. Okay, item 6.10, Mrs. Asire.
Thank you. It's recommended that the governing board approve the dates listed for regularly scheduled governing board meetings for the 2019-20 school year. All of these dates are the third Tuesday of each month, which adheres to district policy with some exceptions. October 22nd is late due to fall break. March 10th is early due to spring break. And then we do have some actual budget dates that we have to comply with. So for example, at the top of the list, July 9th is our budget date. You'll notice at the bottom of this, it says week of July 6th. So we don't really actually identify that date until later in the year. And then we have our June meeting as well for budget purposes. Or excuse me, our May meeting.
Any discussion?
I move we adopt 6.10 as presented.
Terry?
Anna Alliar,
Yes.
Lisa Roman,
Yes.
Nicole Collins,
Yes.
John Maston,
Yes.
Kathy Cox.
Yes. Okay, item 6.11, and that is my item. I was contacted by ASBA to discuss and determine the ASBA's top priorities for next year's political agenda. And I suppose I could have decided yes or no on my own, but I didn't feel that I wanted to proceed without input from the board. In our packet, we have the ASBA has listed 4 goals, 4 priorities, and there are a lot of subsets under each one. And then last year, our school board submitted 6 priorities. We were asked to submit only 5, but we submitted 6. And some of them match up with the ASBA's priorities, and some of them don't appear in the ASBA's priorities. My recommendation is that I happen to prefer ours, and I would like to resubmit those items again. Now, I don't know, we have no way of showing the audience what the ASBA's are or what ours are, anything to do with. I'll briefly go over ours. We would like current year funding removed because it's not helpful for declining districts. It makes it harder to budget and anticipate needs. We asked, one of our priorities was to redefine classroom spending, and we would like that to include instruction, instructional support, and student support, because the definition is very important as far as what kind of funding that we get for instruction. And the third one is we ask that the state restore the Department of Ed's technology funding for the appropriations and the charter system. Anyway, these systems are 20 years old. Microsoft stopped supporting them in 2010. If they break, there is no fix. In approximately 3 years to develop and implement a new payment system. The way we are paid is really important in ADA. I'm not familiar. Has ADA changed this, Mr. Murray, since last year? Have they changed anything in priority 3?
Mrs. Cox?
Yes.
Are we going into discussion without a motion on the floor?
Well, I guess I'm getting ready to make my motion as presented, and this is what I'm presenting because they can't read anything. So I'm going over this and then
But shouldn't there be an introduction and have this come out in discussion, especially if you're questioning staff?
we can certainly do it that way. I have no problem. I have no, when I say as presented, they don't know what I am talking about. So that was my way of presenting the motion.
Generally, there's a prepared paragraph or two at the beginning of an item that introduces the item, that we're about to discuss. And then there's a recommendation. And then in the discussion, we get into the meat of what it is we're looking at.
Well, okay, we can do it that way. So, my motion, I'm gonna make the motion, is recommended that the governing board discuss the ASBA's 2020 political agenda priorities, and then that we determine the school district's top 5 priorities. And so that is my motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay. So I will continue with my list. On number 3, Mr. Murray, has anything changed with?
In regards to them receiving additional funding?
Yes, it's stated in number 3.
I'm not aware that ADE received additional funding. Last I heard, they were cut for this fiscal year.
Okay. So then priority number 4 of our district would be to restore the requirements for charter schools to post their annual budget online. Because this is public taxpayer money and it needs to be accounted for. And then number 5 is concerns the federal public lands, which provides a great source of revenue to our schools. And we, as far as the rationale for that, we're supposed to, this is the what it says. We're supposed to be a sovereign state, as promised in 1910, the 1910 Enabling Act. And according to this, it says we're not. And yet even ASBA promotes comparisons between Arizona and states that benefit from almost all of their land as a tax base. And then the last item, the last priority is to, there was a ASBA recommendation to increase the age of compulsory education from 16 to 18. We did not agree with that because we felt that was detrimental to the learning environment of the other students, and I did not find that in the ASBA's.
It's still
Yeah, it's still
under
there.
improved outcomes for the students is the first bullet.
Oh, I see that, okay. So they still do want to do that, okay. I was hoping we could get rid of one, but no. So those are our priorities, and I will just quickly read to you ASBA's 4, adequate and equitable funding for school districts to at least the national median for pupil funding, to preserve and strengthen local control, to improve outcomes for all students, and to require public accountability for taxpayer dollars spent on education. So my recommendation would be to submit the same priorities that we submitted last year. Discussion, please.
On priority number 4 on our list, hasn't that already been accomplished?
Don't the charters have to post their budgets now?
I'd have to look into that because I know currently they're even discussing reform as to making them more transparent. So I'd have to look into that. I know we do.
Any other discussion, or do you want to add another priority that you think should be on this list?
Well, I don't know, I'll bring it up. So, I mean, we haven't gotten any traction on the public lands with this governor at all. But I see that Senator Borelli's marijuana bill was looking, I know it seems so weird to talk about that sitting in a school district setting, but here we go.
The hemp, let's refer to it as the hemp bill.
No, this was different. This was SB 1024. But I guess that the dispensaries are the only business in Arizona that the government has to give 3 days notice before they go into their facility, which seems really odd since nobody else gets that latitude. And because it's a cash business, there's some discrepancy about the revenues coming in. So, you know, they think they're looking at like a $40 million revenue.
So you're thinking perhaps ASBA should
Well, I mean,
address
everybody
that?
should play by the same rules, right? Isn't that what we hear all the time? Every business should be playing by the same rules, so, I don't know, everybody shot it down, I think.
Would you make that one of your 5? That
I would, that's a lot of money.
What,
SB 1024.
of the 6 priorities that we have here, which one would you?
Well, I would replace the federal public lands because they're not gonna go after that. They're not gonna go after that,
Okay.
ASBA, but they may, if they heard a school district talking about the medical marijuana loophole, they may go after that.
Okay. Anyone else?
I was looking around at different state boards and just to see what some of their priorities were. And one stood out to me, that their state board association actively promotes legislation that will relieve school districts from cost drivers that are outside of a school board's control.
Relieve them of what?
Cost drivers?
Cost drivers,
Mhm.
okay.
Like
So-
electric rate increases?
I'm sorry?
Like electric rate increases?
They gave a couple of specific examples, but that's one thing. I mean, our budget is largely determined by costs that we have no control over, and if the school board has an eye towards legislation and relieving some of those costs, that might be a good thing.
Can you provide an example?
Well, they were talking about a state-funded retirement system, and they also mentioned employer-provided healthcare costs. So they were hoping that their state might be able to legislate to relieve some of that burden.
So,
In what way? Now you really piqued my curiosity, because these are things that we as a district pay into either because we're good employers or because we're statutorily required to.
Right, and I'm not in any way suggesting that we cut anything from our current health benefits. I'm just saying that if the state school board promotes legislation that might relieve some of those costs, that might be a benefit to us. And I can't really give a whole lot of further details because they just listed the examples, but they didn't give a whole lot of background information. I just thought I'd bring it up as a discussion point.
Okay. Anything else?
yeah, but somebody just sent me a picture that posted, tell us his average teacher salary and whatnot on their website, so I guess number 3 might be a done deal. 15,189.
Yep. Probably think that one out.
I just want to make double clear that I'm not talking about anything that would slash or cut current health care benefits to staff. I only meant that if the state could find a way to provide more of that money to us, that would be a net benefit for us.
So I should imagine an example would be then with the cost of health benefits, that there would be some kind of cost of living adjustment that would reimburse us as that happened. I find that very likely to happen in our state.
So basically that's all M&M, maintenance and operation, which is all determined by ADM and the reimbursement on per pupil funding. So that would all be a raise in the per pupil funding, which right now we're sinking money into teacher salaries from that. So there's a thought process that maybe that would go higher.
Like I said, I'm not really prepared to offer more details.
Okay. So who wants to propose how we proceed with this?
I think that we would remove priority 3.
Maybe if we're doing.
Or priority 3 and, or no, I'm sorry, priority 4. My bad.
So you meant priority 4 when we
We remove priority 4 and priority 5.
Okay. And did you say and 5?
Correct.
Okay. So,
And I'm not even sure if priority two is done. Did the Auditor General report, did they redefine classroom spending, do you know?
I haven't seen the revised definition yet.
Okay.
So let's leave that. So Terry, we do have a motion on the floor,
For discussion.
simply for discussion.
If I may,
The item that is on ASBA's is the require comparative classroom spending audits for school districts and all other institutions and define classroom spending as both instructional spending and student support spending. So I don't think that would be on there if that was already done. That pretty much describes. Priority two.
Okay. Anything else that we should get rid of? And then I'm going to ask if there's anything that you want to add.
I wouldn't get rid of number 5. I just don't think that they're gonna act on it, even though they claim they're looking for a dedicated funding source. I don't know that I'd get rid of it, but.
Well, I don't think it hurts to keep that out in front, not forget about it.
And this isn't something that they could actually change, they would just be advocating, not action, just advocacy.
We're advocating the ASBA that this would be our advocation for us. So maybe they'll advocate for us at some point, maybe.
Well said. All right, have we come to consensus, do you think? We're moving,
Actually, no, because in looking at ASBA's, Mrs. Cohen's request to keep priority 5 in, I think we just simply resubmit what our list was last year.
and then,
We should resubmit without changes at that point.
oh, good, that was my original motion on what it was going to
Totally
be.
fine by me.
Okay, so we've had a discussion, so
So there was something about the SBU, is it 1054, 1080?
Oh, 10 foot, I forgot it.
which one are you referring
That
to?
medical marijuana loophole,
Yeah.
the 40 million.
Pulled it up, okay. There's an article, I think it's Sunday. Yep, 1024. Oh, yeah.
What did you want to?
I thought I heard you say that you wanted to include that, so that's why I have my notes here, I want to make sure.
So that would be an addition. Okay, but it would be an addition, so that would make 7 items.
Let's send in 7.
Okay, all right.
What's the worst that happens?
So, Terry, what is in order now for me to do, since it was my motion? Can
Close
I,
discussion and make that motion.
I move we close discussion.
okay? Terry?
Who seconded? I'm sorry.
I'll second it.
Okay. Joe Maston?
Yes.
Nicole Cohen?
Yes.
Marciana Collier?
Yes.
Lisa Roman?
Yes.
Kathy Cox?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I move that our governing board resubmit the same priorities to ASBA that we did last year with the addition of,
SB 1024, medical marijuana.
1024?
did you get that, Terry? All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? Terry?
Lisa Roman?
Yes.
Nicole Cohen?
Yes.
John Maston?
Yes.
Marciana Collier?
Yes.
Kathy Cox?
Yes. Item 6.12, Mr. Murray.
Madam President, members of the board, it's recommended that the board approve the vouchers for March 2019 and K-8 student activity funds for February 2019 and auxiliary funds for February 2019.
I move that we approve 6.12 as presented.
Second.
Discussion. Terry?
Bill Cohen,
Yes.
John Maston,
Yes.
Anna Alliar,
Yes.
Lisa Roman,
Yes.
Kathy Cox.
Yes. Okay, we come now to the informational part of our agenda. Mrs. Asire.
Yes, thank you. I actually am sorry that the hour is late. There are a couple of things I would like to update the board on. But first I would like to recognize in our personnel update that is behind the board items, we have announced our school site teachers of the year. And those are Tricia Conan from Nautilus, Olivia Robeson from Havasupai, Roseanne Hagan from Smoke Tree, Lori Fellish from Starline, Carol Nowakowski from Oro Grande, Leanne Stansel, Jamaica, Jen Black from Thunderbolt, and Carmen Domek from Lake Havasu High School. The note in the agenda, and congratulations to all of those, I don't know if anybody we have a couple. Carol's here, Jen is here.
Can you stand up, the two that were here?
I would like to point out that the item says that the celebration will be on May 16th, and it does state a location. That location is not where it will happen, so that location is to be announced. But we will celebrate our Teacher of the Year on May 16th from 5 to 7. I also would like to congratulate Mr. Zamponia Dustin, who is in the room, and in the personnel action this evening, Mr. Zamponia was hired as the new assistant principal for Lake Havasu High School for the 1920 school.
All right, another round of
I also would like to share that the State Board of Education met yesterday and did make some decisions about the assessment system and the accountability system. So I would like to share just briefly with the board what is happening. They are changing the high school A through F for 1 year for this 18-19 school year that we're in, and instead of using a growth model to calculate the school's grades, they will be using improvement of the subgroups in graduation rate, dropout rate, and proficiency. The federal government denied the opportunity to use a menu of assessments, and so it's basically dead at K-8, and the state is putting together a plan for 9 through 12. The assessment plan, and they are moving forward with the request, is to continue with the AZ merit for 2019-20 and 2021. They are going to change the name of it to more accurately reflect what the test measures. It feels like a tax credit club.
Yes.
And then at least for those 2 years, they will be testing at the high school level at 1 grade level only, and the state board has not yet decided whether it will be grade 9 or 10. Then they are putting out an RFP in 2019 for a new statewide assessment. They expect that they will field test that assessment in 2021, and then the new assessment will be administered K-8 in 21-22, ongoing. For the high school, their hope is to identify a nationally recognized college entrance exam that has a pre-test aligned with it, so that they would administer in 9th and 11th grade. And so that is the plan for from 2021 going forward. And they're still pursuing whether they can use the menu of assessments at the high school level. But every school in the state will take AZ merit for the next 2 years, maybe under a new name.
Can we send suggestions?
They're actually, there's a survey out, which is very interesting, and the only question that they really ask on the survey is, should the high school administer grade 9 or 10 for the next 2 years? Yeah. So, it was, but this action was all taken at the state board meeting. We did provide the high school with the information so they can work on their A through F grade information.
Anything else?
No, that is it. Thank you for our donations, as always. Our community is very generous.
Any governing board members?
I have a question for Mrs. Festadego. On the personal technology report, you show a calculation for first response. I'd like to know how you define response on that.
Under what?
Under the very bottom of the personnel and technology report.
Yes, so that is our ticket system, and that is the time that it takes someone to respond back to them. So someone from the tech department to complete that first level.
So that's that first point of contact. So a ticket comes in, that would be the phone call.
It could be, it might be a phone call, it might be face-to-face, it might be an email, depending on what the problem is.
Just seemed like it was a long general period of time to me to get to. From the private sector, I do that in less than 30 minutes.
I will share that feedback with them. It's half the time, it's half.
And some of that gets into the definition of response. And there may be a way to lower that number.
Can I just ask what the number is? Because every ticket I've put in has been like 5 or 10 minutes. So.
Can I share it?
Sure.
The March to date one was 285 tickets with a 7-hour first response and a time to close of 21 hours.
Any ticket I've ever put in, I've never had anywhere even close to that.
That's why I'm concerned, because I see the hours that high.
And that would make my only thing is depending on the time of day, if it's happening towards the end of school, if it's for the ones that are happening at the end that are taking until the morning.
There should be some way though that we can calculate a response point against that.
I can clarify.
Whether it's an auto reply or something like that.
I can clarify with Sean. This was the first month they really started looking at their times and really looking at feedback. And I thought that was really great that they were looking at feedback and the service they're providing.
And I also like the way that it month over month it went down.
Yeah, I do too.
But I still look at that number and just like again the private sector and it looks like it goes.
I will clarify with Sean to make sure that it's not overnight, and if there's any reason why there is such a long response time, or people feel like it's a long response time.
You do get an automated email saying your ticket was received, like immediate.
Again in the private sector world.
It can't count as the initial response time.
In the private sector world, a response is a reply.
Oh, then that happens immediately.
Yeah.
And then you have start of work, and then you have resolution. Those are the three.
But that can't be part of this calculation, because if everybody's getting an automatic email, you wouldn't have a 7-hour wait time as an average if they're getting it immediately every time.
Putting somebody on the phone to acknowledge the issue, or there's got to be something like that that we can metric as that's first response.
I'll clarify.
Any other board members?
I just wanted to show what the footprint looked like. I didn't get to do that before, so this calculator, it's carbonfootprint.com. Everybody can do their own, but it has your footprint, then your country average, and then the world target. And this was the one for all travel, and this was the one for an individual travel to Boston. So this would be the student, this would be our country, USA, and this would be the target goal. So you can see how we're exceeding, I'm just trying to make the point how we're exceeding in this, global environmental discussion that we're constantly having about what we need to do. Just sheer travel for 2 events is exceeding the world target and the country average just for our little tiny school district, based on just adding the mileage for the buses and the mileage for the airplane, and that's it. That doesn't include any of the other secondary, and I mean the list goes on and on that you can fill out. So just something to think about, because I know that we're pushing that in our school, and that just kind of seems like it might be a bit of a contradiction if we're pushing it while we're simultaneously doing the very things that we're not lecturing, but trying to educate people to not do.
Good point. Let's start tonight being aware of that. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I do have an announcement. First of all, Bridget Haggis, teacher at Starline, decided this year to take on future problem solving with her students, and she just took them down to Phoenix for a state contest. And one of her teams has been chosen to go to nationals. It's just in Massachusetts. It's unheard of. I mean, it's unheard of. I mean, it's just incredible. That I watched the process of future problem solving. There is so much there to do and for the kids to learn, but they did it, and I'm just thrilled, and I know that you are too, Ms. Triasi. And then before the next board meeting in May, there's going to be an event at the high school. It's the CTE program. Is it called Shining Stars, Mr. Becker, with the CTE students who win awards and do all kinds of wonderful things, and it's going to be on May the 2nd at the high school. I don't have the time. It's in the pack. Do you have the time? Okay. At 6 o'clock, and Terry, I will be attending. I'm just letting you know, and if any board members want to attend, please let Terry know. And that is all that I have. Terry, do we have calls to the public?
No, we do not.
Okay. Any communications from the board, suggestions for future agenda items, or? All right. I'm assuming the press will see us after the meeting. Okay. Remember, there are 5 of us. Okay. And I will now ask, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Doug Maston,
Yes.
Nicole Cohen,
Yes.
Lisa Roman,
Yes.
Anna Allier,
Yes.
Kathy Cox.
Yes.
Thank you.